Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto awakened power of the Sun God Nika and fell in love with Nami? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Sunlit. Whispers Dawn painted the ruins of Uzushiogakure in shades of amber and gold, illuminating crumbled stone edifices that had once housed the proud Uzumaki clan. Naruto Uzumaki stood motionless atop a fractured pillar, his vibrant orange and black jacket ruffling in the salt-tinged breeze. The 19-year-old hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War gazed across his ancestral homeland with crystalline blue eyes that reflected both the cloudless sky above and the weight of history below. "There's something here," he murmured, his voice carrying a maturity that had been hard-won through conflict and loss. "Kurama, you feel it too, don't you?" Within the seal that bound them, the nine-tailed fox stirred. "Yes," the ancient being rumbled in Naruto's mind. "This place resonates with chakra older than even my own creation. Proceed with caution, Naruto." The young shinobi nodded, descending from his perch with the fluid grace of a seasoned jonin. In the year since the war's end, peace had set. Led across the shinobi nations, a fragile, precious thing that Naruto guarded fiercely. Yet purpose had proven more elusive than peace. Hokage training under Kakashi filled his days, but his nights were restless, haunted by a persistent sense that something remained unfinished. 3 weeks ago, that restlessness had crystallized into a recurring dream, swirling red symbols, a forgotten temple, and a voice like sunshine calling his name. When Naruto mentioned these dreams to Kakashi, his former sensei had granted him leave to investigate. The Uzumaki were known for their sealing techniques, Kakashi had said, his visible eye crinkling with concern. "If something's calling to you from Uzushiogakure, it might be significant." Now, as Naruto picked his way through overgrown rubble, he extended his senses outward, letting natural energy flow through him in a limited sage mode. The familiar orange pigmentation appeared around his eyes as new awareness flooded his consciousness. Beneath the island, currents of energy pulsed in complex patterns that felt simultaneously alien and intimately familiar, like a forgotten melody from childhood. "There," he whispered, turning toward a half-collapse structure partially reclaimed by the sea. What had once been a grand entrance now resembled little more than a cave mouth, its weathered stone archway engraved with faded spiral patterns. Naruto approached cautiously, creating a Rasengan in his palm to illuminate the darkness. The swirling chakra cast eerie blue shadows across ancient walls covered in intricate seals, not the familiar Uzumaki fuinjutsu he had expected, but something older and more complex. "I've never seen seals like these before," he murmured, moving deeper into the temple. "These are not seals in the conventional sense," Kurama replied, his tone uncharacteristically subdued. "They remind me of something the Sage of Six Paths once mentioned." The corridor widened into a vast circular chamber, its high-own ceiling partially collapsed to admit shafts of sunlight. At the chamber's center stood a raised dais bearing an ornate altar. 7 pillars surrounded the altar, each engraved with different symbols: a sun, a moon, a mountain, a sea, a storm, a forest, and a star. Naruto stepped onto the dais, drawn by an inexplicable certainty. The spiral patterns on the altar began to glow with a warm gold light that intensified as he approached. "What is this place?" he breathed, extending a tentative hand toward the altar's surface. "Naruto, wait!" Kurama's warning came too late. The moment Naruto's fingers brushed the ancient stone, a surge of energy erupted through his chakra network. Golden light exploded outward, illuminating the entire chamber and sending Naruto staggering backward. The 7 pillars blazed to life, each emitting a different colored light that converged above the altar. "What's happening?" Naruto gasped, struggling to maintain his footing as the temple began to tremble. The convergence of light coalesced into a swirling vortex that resembled neither ninjutsu nor any technique Naruto had ever witnessed. "This is dimensional energy," Kurama growled, his chakra instinctively rising to protect his host. "Similar to Kagaya's power, but different, older somehow." The vortex expanded, its edges rippling with spectral images, glimpses of foreign landscapes, strange vessels sailing on endless oceans. Individuals wielding powers unlike any shinobi technique. At its center, a blinding point of light began to take humanoid form. WHO awakens the first temple. The voice shook the very foundations of the chamber, resonating not just in Naruto's ears but through his entire being. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he replied, standing his ground despite the overwhelming pressure. I didn't mean to awaken anything. I'm just looking for answers about my clan. The light dimmed slightly, revealing a vague silhouette with a wild mane of hair and an impossibly wide grin. Uzumaki. The Guardians return, but the cycle is incomplete. The barriers weaken. Worlds that were severed begin to converge. The figure reached toward Naruto, and he felt Kurama's chakra surge protectively. What do you mean? What cycle? What barriers? Instead of answering, the figure dissolved into streams of golden light that shot toward Naruto with impossible speed. He raised his arms defensively, but the light passed through his guard, entering his body through his seal. For an instant, Naruto felt an alien presence alongside Kurama, ancient, powerful, and filled with an inexplicable joy. Then, pain, white-hot, all-consuming pain as though his body were being remade from the inside out. Naruto fell to his knees, muscles spasming as conflicting energies battled within him. Naruto! Kurama roared, his chakra surrounding the invasive energy, containing it without fully suppressing it. Hold on, I'll stabilize you. The young shinobi gritted his teeth, forcing himself to breathe through the agony. Gradually, the pain subsided, leaving him gasping on the temple floor as the golden light receded into the altar. But the vortex remained, widening rather than diminishing. The temple's trembling intensified, stones falling from the ceiling as the structure began to collapse. We need to leave, Kurama urged. Whatever you've activated is destabilizing this entire area. Naruto pushed himself to his feet, still disoriented but recovering quickly thanks to his incredible stamina and Kurama's healing. He turned to flee, then froze as a human scream echoed from within the vortex. Without hesitation, he spun back and leapt toward the sound, diving headlong into the swirling light. For a moment, Naruto experienced a sensation of falling through endless space, surrounded by fragmentary images of another world. Then his fingers closed around something solid, a slender wrist, and he pulled with all his might. Reality snapped back into focus as Naruto tumbled onto the temple floor. Another person landing beside him in a tangle of limbs. He had just enough time to register bright orange hair before the temple gave a final shudder. With reflexes honed by years of training, Naruto scooped up the stranger and channeled chakra to his feet, accelerating toward the exit as the ceiling began to collapse. Sunlight and sea air hit his face as he burst from the temple, debris crashing down behind them. Naruto didn't stop until they'd reached safe distance, finally setting his burden down on a grassy outcropping overlooking the sea. For the first time, he got a clear look at the person he'd rescued, a young woman with short orange hair, wearing unusual clothing, a blue and white striped top that exposed her midriff, a short skirt, and some kind of mechanical device strapped to her wrist. Her eyes were closed, face pale but breathing steady. Hey, Naruto said gently, checking for injuries. Can you hear me? Are you okay? The woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing a warm brown that quickly sharpened with alarm. She scrambled backward, reaching for something at her hip that wasn't there. Who are you? She demanded, her voice steady despite her obvious disorientation. Where am I? What happened to the storm? Naruto raised his hands non-threateningly. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. You're in the land of whirlpools. What's left of it, anyway? As for what happened, he glanced back at the collapsed temple. Now little more than a pile of rubble. I'm not entirely sure myself. There was some kind of portal, and I heard you scream. The woman studied him with obvious suspicion, eyes darting between Naruto and their surroundings. The last thing I remember, I was on the Thousand Sunny. We sailed into a strange fog, then there was this golden light. She pressed a hand to her temple. Luffy and the others, they must be looking for me. I don't know who those people are, Naruto said carefully, but I think you might have come through from somewhere else. Another world, maybe. The being in the temple mentioned barriers between worlds weakening. The woman's expression shifted from suspicion to disbelief. Another world. That's impossible. I've seen a lot of strange things on the Grand Line. But different worlds. She shook her head firmly. No, this has to be some unknown island. Maybe the fog carried us off course. Before Naruto could respond, a flicker of movement caught his attention. His hand moved instinctively to his weapon's pouch as he scanned their surroundings. The fine hairs on the back of his neck stood up. They were being watched. "We should move," he said quietly. "I don't think we're alone here." The woman tensed, following his gaze. "Pirates, Marines, I don't know what those are, but no, this feels like shinobi. Skilled ones, hiding their chakra." Naruto offered his hand. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but right now, we need to get somewhere safe. I promise I'll help you figure out what's happened and how to get back to your friends." She hesitated, then took his hand with surprising firmness. "Nami. My name is Nami." Her eyes betrayed lingering suspicion, but her voice held resolve. "If you try anything funny, you should know I've escaped from much worse situations than this." A genuine smile spread across Naruto's face. "I believe you. You seem like someone who can handle yourself." He helped her to her feet. "Can you run?" Nami nodded, and Naruto led her away from the ruined temple, keeping to cover where possible. As they moved, he created a shadow clone that split off in another direction, a standard diversionary tactic. "What was that?" Nami asked, eyes wide. "You just duplicated yourself." "Shadow clone jutsu," Naruto explained as they ducked behind a fallen column. "It's a technique shinobi use. Don't worry, he'll draw away whoever's following us while we head for the coast. I have a boat hidden there." Nami's brow furrowed. "Jutsu, shinobi, where exactly am I?" "The shinobi world. 5 great nations, lots of smaller ones. All connected by—" Naruto stopped abruptly, pulling Nami down as 3 kunai embedded themselves in a tree trunk inches from where they'd been standing. "Found you," a smooth voice called from above. A figure dropped from the canopy, landing with cat-like grace 10 paces away. He wore dark clothing with no identifying symbols, his face partially obscured by a mask that covered the lower half of his face. But what caught Naruto's attention were his eyes, blood red with 3 tomo spinning lazily around the pupil. "Sharingan," Naruto breathed, instinctively moving to shield Nami. "Who are you? I thought Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei were the only ones left with those eyes." The stranger tilted his head. "How disappointing. The great hero of the 4th War Do sent recognize a member of the clan his village helped destroy." His voice carried a bitter edge beneath its cultured tone. "My name is Kenji Uchiha, and you've just activated something that belongs to my family." Naruto's mind raced. Another Uchiha survivor. It seemed impossible, yet the Sharingan couldn't be faked. The Uchiha had nothing to do with that temple. It's connected to the Uzumaki clan. Such ignorance, Kenji sighed. The sage entrusted 7 families with the dimensional temples. The Uchiha were guardians of the Moon Temple, while your Uzumaki ancestors watched over the Sun Temple. But that's ancient history now. His Sharingan intensified, the tomo spinning faster. "What matters is that you've awakened the primary temple and initiated the convergence. I've been working toward this for years. And now you've saved me considerable effort." Naruto tensed, ready for an attack. "Whatever you're planning, I'm going to stop it. That temple nearly killed us both, and something came through, something powerful." Kenji's eyes widened slightly. It emerged. The Guardian manifested. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his features. "Where is it? What happened?" "It's gone," Naruto said, not fully understanding himself but knowing instinctively that he shouldn't reveal the entity's apparent merger with him. "The temple collapsed." "Impossible," Kenji hissed. "The Guardian can't just disappear. It must have." His gaze sharpened, studying Naruto more intently. "Of course, an Uzumaki with the 9 tails. The perfect vessel." A slow smile spread beneath his mask. "This changes things. Instead of retrieving the Guardian, I'll have to take you instead." He formed hand signs with blinding speed. "Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu." Multiple fireballs shot toward them. Naruto grabbed Nami around the waist and leapt sideways, his free hand forming a familiar cross-shaped sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of clones appeared, surrounding Kenji while He original Naruto set Nami down behind a large boulder. "Stay here," he instructed. "This could get dangerous." "I'm not helpless," Nami protested, pulling a segmented staff from a holster on her thigh that Naruto hadn't noticed before. With a practiced motion, She extended it to full length. Just tell me what we're dealing with. An Uchiha, Naruto replied, impressed by her composure. They're an elite clan with powerful visual jutsu. Don't look directly into his eyes if you can help it. Without waiting for a response, he rejoined the battle. His clones had engaged Kenji in taijutsu, but the Uchiha was dispatching them with practiced efficiency, his Sharingan allowing him to predict their movements. Naruto summoned a Rasengan, its blue energy swirling in his palm as he charged forward. Kenji countered with a Chidori, the lightning-based technique crackling around his hand. The two jutsu collided in a deafening explosion that sent both shinobi skidding backward. Impressive, Kenji acknowledged. But you're holding back, afraid of harming your new friend, perhaps. Or maybe the Guardian's energy is interfering with your chakra control. Naruto felt a strange sensation ripple out him at the mention of the Guardian, a flicker of golden energy that momentarily disrupted his connection to Kurama. The distraction cost him. Kenji appeared behind him in a blur of movement, kunai aimed at his kidney. A metallic clang rang out as Nami's staff intercepted the blade, her face set in a determined grimace. Behind you, she shouted, spinning the staff with surprising skill to push Kenji back. The Uchiha raised an eyebrow. Interesting. A dimensional traveler with combat abilities. You're full of surprises, Uzumaki. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Naruto created another clone. Together, they began forming a more powerful technique, wind chakra swirling around the basic Rasengan structure. Wind style. Rasenshuriken. Kenji's eyes widened as Naruto hurled the devastating technique. He performed a substitution jutsu at the last second, replacing himself with a large piece of rubble that was instantly shredded by the attack. We need to leave, Naruto told Nami urgently. That won't stop him for long. As if to confirm his words, a massive fireball erupted from the treeline. Fire style. Great fire annihilation. The wall of flames raced toward them, too wide to dodge. Naruto stepped forward, drawing on Kurama's chakra to form a protective cloak around himself and Nami. But as the golden energy began to materialize, something interfered. The foreign power from the temple flared within him, sending white-hot pain lancing through his chakra network. Arg! Naruto staggered, the fox cloak flickering unstably. Something's wrong, Kurama growled. The Guardian's energy is reacting to mine. I can't maintain the transformation. The flames were seconds from engulfing them when Nami stepped forward, twirling her staff. Weather egg, she called, the tip of her staff emitting a strange bubble that rapidly expanded. Rain tempo. To Naruto's astonishment, dark clouds formed within the bubble, immediately releasing a downpour that intercepted the fireball. Steam hissed and billowed around them as fire met water, creating a thick fog bank. How did you? Naruto began, but Nami grabbed his arm. Questions later. Run now. They sprinted through the steam, using the cover to make their escape. Naruto extended his senses, tracking Kenji's position as the Uchiha searched for them. With Nami following close behind, he led them through the ruins, toward the hidden cove where he'd moored his boat. That was amazing, Naruto said as they reached the shoreline. Was that some kind of water jutsu? Nami looked at him strangely. It's weather science. My klima tact manipulates temperature and atmospheric conditions. She patted the staff, now collapsed back to its compact form. What about you? That swirling energy ball thing was unlike anything I've seen, even from devil fruit users. Devil fruit. Naruto shook his head as he uncovered a small vessel concealed beneath branches and netting. We definitely have a lot to explain to each other. But first, let's put some distance between us and Kenji. As they pushed the boat into the water, Naruto glanced back at the island. The collapsed temple was now just a dark scar against the landscape. But he could feel that something fundamental had changed, not just for the island, but for him as well. The strange energy from the Guardian still pulsed within him, separate from yet somehow harmonizing with Kurama's chakra. Be wary, Naruto, the Nine Tails warned. This power is ancient and unpredictable. I can contain it for now, but eventually, you'll need to learn to control it, or it will control you. Naruto nodded imperceptibly as he helped Nami aboard. Whatever had happened in that temple, whatever this convergence was that Kenji mentioned, he had a feeling his life had just become vastly more complicated. 3 days later, Naruto stood before the Hokage's desk, hands clasped behind his back as he finished his report. Kakashi Hatake listened without interruption, his masked face betraying little of his thoughts until Naruto mentioned the Uchiha survivor. Kenji Uchiha, Kakashi repeated, visible eye narrowing. That name doesn't appear in any village records. He seemed to know about the massacre. Naruto said, and his Sharingan was definitely real. Kakashi sighed, leaning back in his chair. After everything with Obito and Madara, I suppose we shouldn't be surprised that another Uchiha survived. Still, this talk of dimensional temples and guardians is concerning. Especially given recent reports. Recent reports? Naruto asked. Kakashi nodded. Street range energy signatures have been detected in several locations across the shinobi world. Gaara sent word from Suna about unusual weather patterns in the desert. And just yesterday, a fishing village in the land of water reported seeing a ship unlike any they'd ever encountered, a ship that supposedly fell from the sky. Naruto's eyes widened. Like what Kenji called the convergence. Worlds coming together. Possibly. Kakashi steepled his fingers. Which brings us to your passenger. Shizune's medical examination confirmed she's human, but her chakra network is underdeveloped, suggesting she comes from a world where chakra isn't used the same way. Yet her weather manipulation device functions on principles our scientists can't explain. Where is she now? Naruto asked. Guest quarters, under Anbu observation. She's not a prisoner, Kakashi added, seeing Naruto's expression, but we need to be cautious. If what you experienced in that temple is connected to these other incidents, we could be facing a significant threat. Naruto nodded, understanding the precaution even as he felt a twinge of protectiveness toward Nami. During their journey back to Konoha, he'd learned more about her world, a place dominated by vast oceans, where pirates sought treasure and freedom while a world government maintained a semblance of order. Her own quest to map this grand line had been interrupted when whatever dimensional disturbance brought her to the shinobi world. There's something else, Naruto said hesitantly. Since the temple, I've been experiencing changes. Kakashi's attention sharpened. What kind of changes? It's hard to explain. Moments where I feel lighter, almost weightless. Bursts of strength beyond even what I can normally access with Kurama's chakra. And sometimes, Naruto looked down at his hands. Sometimes I start laughing for no reason. Not normal laughter. It feels ancient, like it's coming from somewhere else. Kakashi was silent for a long moment. And Kurama, what does he make of this? He thinks the guardian, this sun god entity, merged with me somehow. He's containing its energy, but he says it's different from chakra. More fundamental. The Hokage rose from his desk, moving to the window that overlooked the village. I've already dispatched teams to investigate the other energy signatures. Additionally, I'm assigning you a research spec IA list to help understand what's happening to you and what these temples represent. He turned back to Naruto. Someone with unique qualifications in ancient chakra theory and Uzumaki sealing techniques. A knock at the door punctuated his statement. Right on time. Enter. The door opened to reveal a young woman perhaps a year or two older than Naruto. Her most striking feature was her hair, a deep crimson that immediately identified her Uzumaki heritage, though styled in an elegant updo rather than Naruto's unruly spikes. She wore standard Konoha shinobi attire modified with additional roll pouches and what appeared to be sealing implements. Lord Hokage, she greeted Kakashi with a respectful bow before turning curious eyes toward Naruto. And you must be the infamous Naruto Uzumaki. I've heard so much about you. Naruto, this is Mito Terumi, Kakashi introduced. A distant relation of the 5th Mizukage on her father's side, but her mother was an Uzumaki who escaped the destruction of Uzushiogakure. She's been studying ancient chakra techniques and sealing methods across the 5 great nations. Mito approached with measured steps, her green eyes assessing Naruto with scholarly interest. It's an honor to meet the hero of the 4th war, and apparently now the vessel of an ancient sun deity. Her tone was serious, but a slight smile softened her features. My research suggests the Uzumaki clan maintained certain traditions connected to primordial entities long before the founding of the hidden villages. What you've encountered may be the origin of those traditions. Naruto blinked, momentarily taken aback by her direct approach. So you think the Guardian is real? That these dimensional temples actually connect different worlds. I think, Mito replied carefully, that we've barely scratched the surface of understanding the true nature of chakra and its relationship to dimensions and deities. The Sage of Six Paths himself came from another dimension, after all. There's one more person who might help us understand what's happening, Kakashi interjected. Especially regarding these dimensional aspects. He signaled to an Anbu member outside the door. Please escort Hinata Hyuga here. Minutes later, Hinata entered the office. Her midnight blue hair was longer now, falling past her shoulders, and her traditional Hyuga robes had been replaced by a practical Jonin uniform that spoke of her advancement since the war. Her lavender eyes met Naruto's briefly, a slight blush coloring her cheeks despite the professional composure she maintained. Naruto-kun, she greeted softly. Lord Hokage said you encountered something unusual. Hinata. Naruto smiled warmly. His relationship with the Hyuga heiress had evolved into a close friendship after her confession during Pain's attack. Though romance had never fully blossomed between them, they shared a deep bond forged through mutual respect and shared experiences. It's good to see you. Hinata. A's Byakugan has shown unusual sensitivity to dimensional fluctuations, Kakashi explained. During the war, she could perceive aspects of Kagaya's dimensions that even Sasuke's Rinnegan struggled with. If these temples are causing dimensional disturbances, her insight will be invaluable. Hinata nodded. I've been training to extend my Byakugan's capabilities. Recently, I've noticed ripples in the fabric of space around Konoha. Like watching stones disturb a still pond. Perfect, Kakashi said. Then I'm assigning all three of you to investigate this situation. Naruto, as the apparent vessel for this guardian entity. You'll be the team leader. Mito will research the historical and chakra theoretical aspects. Hinata will use her Byakugan to track dimensional anomalies. He glanced at each of them in turn. And of course, your first task will be to learn what you can from our visitor. Nami stood by the window of her assigned quarters, studying the unfamiliar village spread out below. Konoha. They called it, the village hidden in the leaves. A fitting name for a settlement nestled within an enormous forest, its architecture blending harmoniously with the surrounding trees. So different from the maritime towns of her world, yet strangely comfortable in its own way. She turned as the door opened, revealing Naruto accompanied by two women she hadn't met before. The sight of the blonde shinobi brought conflicting emotions, gratitude for his rescue, lingering suspicion about his role in her displacement, and a grudging admiration for the straightforward way he dealt with her situation since their arrival. How are you settling in? Naruto asked, his easy smile seemingly genuine. Nami gestured to the comfortable but clearly monitored room. The hospitality is nice, but I'd rather not be a guest indefinitely. Any progress on figuring out how I get back to my crew? That's why we're here, Naruto replied. Nami, this is Mito Terumi, an expert on ancient chakra techniques and sealing methods. And this is Hinata Hyuga, whose Byakugan, special eyes, can see things others can't, including dimensional energies. Mito approached with a respectful nod. A pleasure to meet you, Nami-san. I understand you're a navigator in your world. That might explain how you were drawn through the dimensional rift. Perhaps those who guide others through space have a natural affinity for dimensional traversal. Hinata offered a gentle smile. If it's all right with you, I'd like to examine your chakra network with my Byakugan. It might help us understand how your weather science works in our world. Nami studied both women, assessing them as she would potential allies or threats on the Grand Line. Mito carried herself with scholarly confidence, her red hair and green eyes striking against her pale complexion. Hinata seemed gentler, her lavender eyes holding a kindness that reminded Nami somewhat of Chopper. Fine, she agreed, but I want to be involved in whatever you discover. This isn't just academic for me, my friends could be in danger if they're searching for me. Of course, Naruto assured her. We're forming a team to investigate the temples and the dimensional disturbances. You know more about your world than anyone here, we need your help as much as you need ours. Something in his earnest expression made Nami believe him. She nodded, then turned to Hinata. So how does this eye examination work? Please stand still, Hinata requested politely. Byakugan. The veins around Hinata's eyes bulged slightly as her pupils became more defined. Nami felt a momentary discomfort. As though someone were looking not at her but through her. Remarkable, Hinata murmured after a moment. Your chakra network is structured differently from ours. The pathways are narrower but more numerous. And they seem to concentrate around that device on your wrist rather than throughout your body. Mito leaned forward with interest. May I? She asked, gesturing to the klima tact. Nami hesitated, then handed over her precious weapon. Be careful with it. Usopp and Frankie would kill me if anything happened to their modifications. The red-haired researcher examined the staff with obvious fascination. The craftsmanship is exceptional. These components, they're conducting energy, but not in any way I recognize. She looked up. In our world, we manipulate chakra, a combination of physical and spiritual energy, to perform jutsu. Your device seems to interact directly with natural energy without converting it to chakra first. It manipulates weather, Nami explained. Temperature, humidity, air pressure, the basics of meteorology weaponized. A hint of pride crept into her voice. I can create rain, lightning, even fog, all precisely controlled. Like the rain you used against Kenji. Naruto recalled. That was incredible. Nami accepted the klima tact back from Mito. So what's the plan? How do we find these temples and get me back home? According to what Kenji said, there are 7 temples. Naruto explained. The Sun Temple we found in Uzushiogakure was apparently the primary one. If we can locate the others, we might be able to understand how the dimensional system works and potentially create a stable pathway back to your world. But first, Mito interjected, we should examine what happened to Naruto. If this guardian entity merged with him, that connection might be key to controlling the dimensional rifts. Naruto nodded, though Nami noticed a flicker of unease cross his features. Kurama, that's the 9 tails inside me, says the guardian's energy is contained for now. But sometimes I can feel it, pushing. Let me see, Hinata said, her Byakugan still active. She studied Naruto intently, her expression growing increasingly confused. Your chakra has always been unique because of the 9 tails, but now there's something else. A golden energy interwoven with your normal blue chakra and Kurama's red. It's pulsing, almost like it has its own heartbeat. Can you try accessing it? Mito suggested. Just a small amount, under controlled conditions. Naruto hesitated. The last time it activated was when I was protecting Nami from Kenji's attack. And it interfered with Kurama's chakra. He glanced at Nami. But I need to learn to control it if we're going to fix this. He closed his eyes, his expression concentrating as he searched within himself. Nami watched with fascination as a faint golden glow began to emanate from his skin. Unlike the orange energy she'd seen him use briefly during their fight with Kenji, this light seemed purer somehow. More elemental. I can feel it, Naruto murmured, his voice taking on a strange echoing quality. It's like freedom, joy, the sun breaking through clouds. Hinata gasped. Your chakra network is changing. The golden energy is expanding through pathways I've never seen before. Naruto's eyes snapped open, but they weren't his usual blue. Instead, they glowed with the same golden light that now outlined his body. His hair began to lighten, strands of white appearing among the blonde. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not his normal laugh, but something wilder, more primal, a sound of pure, unbridled joy that seemed to brighten the very air around them. Naruto? Nami asked uncertainly, taking a step back. The laughter cut off abruptly as Naruto doubled over, the golden light flickering erratically. Something's fighting it, he gasped. Kurama is enough. A voice that wasn't quite Naruto's rumbled from his throat. His eyes flashed red briefly before returning to their normal blue. The golden light fading entirely. He straightened slowly, breathing heavily. That was intense. Kurama had to suppress it. He says the Guardian's power isn't compatible with his chakra yet. They're like oil and water right now. Mito was scribbling notes furiously. Fascinating. The legends speak of Nika, the sun god, as a deity of liberation and joy. That laughter, it matches ancient descriptions perfectly. Nika, Naruto repeated. The Guardian has a name. Many names across many cultures, Mito replied. But in the oldest Uzumaki scrolls, the sun deity is called Nika, the god of the sun. Bringer of joy and freedom. Nami felt a chill run down her spine. In my world, there are legends of a Sun God Nika too. A warrior who brought laughter and freedom, whose body could bend reality itself. She looked at Naruto with new eyes. One of my crewmates, Luffy, has powers that supposedly connect to those legends. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Whatever connected their worlds ran deeper than just these temples, shared deities, parallel legends, ancient powers that transcended dimensional boundaries. We need to learn more, Hinata said finally. About the temples, about Nika, about these connections between our worlds. Naruto nodded, his expression resolute despite the momentary vulnerability he'd shown. And we need to move quickly. If Kenji finds the other temples before we do, who knows what damage he could cause. A knock at the door interrupted them. An Anbu operative entered, bowing briefly to Naruto. Uzumaki-san, the Hokage requests your team's immediate presence. There's been an incident at the village gates, visitors claiming to be from another world, asking for someone named Nami. Nami's heart leapt. My crew. They found me. The ANBU's masked face revealed nothing. One of them has a straw hat and keeps stretching his arms to impossible lengths. Another appears to be a walking skeleton. E-Gate guards are understandably concerned. Luffy, Brook, Nami exclaimed, already heading for the door. Those idiots actually made it here. Naruto caught her arm gently. Wait, if your friends have come through a dimensional rift, they might be disoriented or confused. Let's approach carefully. He turned to the Anbu. Tell Lord Hokage we're on our way, and that these visitors are connected to our investigation. As they hurried through the village toward the main gates, Nami felt a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. Relief that her nakama had somehow followed her, proving once again that the Straw Hat Pirates never abandoned one of their own. But apprehension too, because if Luffy and the others could cross between worlds, what else might be crossing in the opposite direction? And what would happen when the Pirate King met the hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War? The commotion at Konoha's main gate was visible from several blocks away. A crowd had gathered, villagers ND shinobi alike straining to glimpse the strange visitors being contained by a perimeter of Jonin and Anbu operatives. As Naruto led their small group closer, the distinctive voice of Might Guy carried over the murmuring crowd. Such youthful exuberance. I haven't seen limbs stretch with such elastic power since my own dynamic entry technique. Shishishi, you're a funny guy. Hey, is that meat? I'm starving. Nami quickened her pace, pushing through the crowd with Naruto, Hinata, and Mito close behind. Luffy, she called out. Luffy, I'm here. The crowd parted to reveal a bizarre standoff. A young man in a red vest and straw hat was enthusiastically mirroring Guy's outlandish poses while simultaneously eyeing a food vendor's cart. Beside him stood a tall skeleton in formal attire complete with a cane and afro, who appeared to be playing a violin for a thoroughly confused audience of shinobi. Several Anbu stood at ready positions, clearly unsure how to handle visitors who seemed neither threatening nor entirely harmless. Nami. The straw-hatted young man's face split into an impossible grin as he spotted her. Without warning, his arms stretched 20 feet across the intervening space, wrapping around Nami multiple times before retracting, yanking her through the air toward him. Several Jonin moved to intercept what they perceived as an attack, but Naruto raised a hand. Wait, they're friends. Nami landed beside Luffy, immediately punching him on the head despite her obvious relief. Idiot. You can't just grab people like that in a village full of ninja. Ninja. Luffy's eyes widened comically. Cool. Did they go here and throw star things? Yo-ho-ho-ho. Nami-san, we've been so worried. The skeleton bowed deeply. My heart was pounding with concern, though I have no heart. Skull joke. Naruto approached cautiously, studying the newcomers with undisguised fascination. The straw-hatted young man radiated a chaotic energy not unlike his own, while the walking, tall King Skeleton defied all biological norms of the shinobi world. You must be Luffy, he said, extending a hand. Nami told us about you. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Luffy grinned, shaking Naruto's hand with enthusiasm. You found Nami. Thanks. Are you a ninja? Can you do ninja stuff? Can you turn invisible? Luffy-san has been most excited about meeting real ninjas since we emerged from the strange fog. The skeleton explained more formally. I am Brook, musician of the Straw Hat Pirates. It's a pleasure to meet you, though these circumstances are most unusual. May I ask where exactly we are? Ashi appeared beside them in a swirl of leaves, his casual demeanor belying the tension of the situation. I'm Kakashi Hatake, Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Perhaps this conversation would be better continued in my office, away from. He gestured to the growing crowd of onlookers, such an audience. A talking skeleton and a rubber man, Mito murmured to Naruto as they escorted the visitors toward the Hokage Tower. Their world must operate on fundamentally different natural laws than ours. Devil fruits, Nami explained, overhearing. They grant powers in exchange for the ability to swim. Luffy ate the gum fruit, making him a rubber man. Brook ate the revive fruit, which allowed his soul to return to his body after death, though his body had already decomposed to bones. Hinata's eyes widened. These fruits can even overcome death. That's beyond any jutsu except perhaps the forbidden reanimation technique. Where are the rest of your crew? Naruto asked Luffy, curious about these other pirates Nami had mentioned. Luffy's expression grew more serious. We got separated when the weird fog hit our ship. Me and Brook ended up on a beach, but the Sunny and everyone else were gone. We followed a glowing trail that led to your village. A glowing trail. Hinata activated her Byakugan briefly. There's residual dimensional energy clinging to both of them, the saw. Me golden signature is what's inside Naruto now. Nika's energy, Mito whispered. It must be acting as a beacon, drawing connected individuals together across the dimensional barriers. As they entered the Hokage's office, Kakashi dismissed his Anbu guards with a subtle hand signal, ensuring privacy for the sensitive discussion to follow. Luffy immediately made himself comfortable, perching on T. He windowsill while Brook stood with perfect posture befitting his gentleman musician persona. So, Kakashi began, I understand you've come from the same world as Nami, brought here by some kind of dimensional disturbance. We were sailing toward an island on our log pose when this golden fog surrounded the Sunny, Brook explained. There was a sensation like passing through a waterfall, and then we were separated. Luffy-san and I found ourselves on an unfamiliar shore with a forest unlike any in our world. And you followed a golden trail here? Naruto asked. Luffy nodded. Yeah, it was like a string only I could see, pulling me toward Nami. He tilted his head, studying Naruto with unexpected perceptiveness. You've got the same golden stuff inside you. I can feel it, like sunshine. The room fell silent. Naruto exchanged glances with Kakashi before asking, you can sense Nika's power. Nika, Luffy's eyes widened. The sun god, like the god my fruit was named after. Your fruit. Mito leaned forward with scholarly interest. What exactly is your devil fruit called? The gum fruit, Luffy answered, stretching his cheek to demonstrate. But when I awakened it fully, the old man Zunesha called it something else. The human fruit, model, Nika. The revelation sent a shock through the room. Naruto felt the golden energy within him pulse in response to Luffy's words. A sensation of recognition that wasn't his own. That can't be coincidence, Kakashi said, breaking the stunned silence. Both of you connected to the same deity, across different dimensions. It makes a certain sense, Mito mused. If the 7 temples were created to maintain dimensional boundaries, each associated with a primordial deity, then Nika's essence might exist in multiple worlds simultaneously. When Naruto activated the Sun Temple, it may have resonated with Luffy's Nika-based powers. Nami crossed her arms. This is fascinating and all, but what about the rest of our crew? Are they scattered across your world now? Or trapped between dimensions? We need to find the other temples, Naruto decided. If activating the Sun Temple created these rifts, maybe the other temples can help stabilize them, or at least give us a way to locate everyone who's been displaced. Luffy hopped down from the windowsill. Then let's go. Adventure time. It's not that simple, Kakashi cautioned. We don't know where the other temples are located, and we have an Uchiha survivor actively working against us. Not to mention the potential dangers of further dimensional disturbances. I might have a lead on the Moon Temple. Mito offered. My research suggests each temple corresponds to a specific elemental affinity or natural domain. If the Sun Temple was in Uzushiogakure, the ancestral home of the Uzumaki, Then the Moon Temple might be connected to the Uchiha clan's original territories, likely somewhere in the mountains northwest of Konoha. Then that's where we'll start, Naruto said decisively. Kenji mentioned the Uchiha were guardians of the Moon Temple. He's probably heading there next. Kakashi nodded. Very well, Naruto, you'll lead a team to investigate this potential Moon Temple site. Take Hinata and Mito, and, he glanced at the dimensional visitors, our guests, since they appear to have a connection to these events. I want to go too, Nami stated firmly. My weather forecasting skills might be useful, especially in mountain terrain. Agreed, Kakashi said, but be aware that this mission is now classified as S rank. Kenji Uchiha is likely a formidable opponent, and we don't yet understand the full implications of these dimensional disturbances. As the meeting concluded and preparations began for their departure, Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Luffy in the hallway outside Kakashi's office. The pirate captain was examining a painting of the village founders with childlike curiosity. Hey, Naruto said, can I ask you something about Nika's power? When it activates for you, do you ever feel like you're not entirely yourself? Like something ancient is laughing through you? Luffy turned, his usually carefree expression giving way to something more thoughtful. When I first awakened Gear 5th, it was like that, like someone else was having fun using my body. The laughing happened on its own. He grinned suddenly, but now it's just me. I made the power mine by having even more fun with it than Nika did. The simplicity of Luffy's solution struck Naruto as both childish and profound. Make the power his own by ching its fundamental nature, joy and freedom, rather than fighting against it. Before he could respond, a strange sensation rippled through him. The golden energy within pulsed strongly, responding to Luffy's proximity. Simultaneously, a strand of Naruto's hair turned white, and he felt an irresistible urge to laugh. The sound that escaped him was that same wild, ancient laughter from before, but this time, it didn't feel foreign. It felt right, a perfect expression of something essential to his nature that had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. Luffy's eyes widened, then he burst into his own distinctive laughter. Shishishi. See, Nika likes you. For a moment, the two young men stood in the hallway, laughing together as the ancient power of the Sun God resonated between them. Two vessels of the same primordial force, connected across dimensions by something older than either of their worlds. And in that moment of shared joy, Naruto glimpsed a truth that had eluded him since. The temple, this power wasn't meant to be contained or controlled. It was meant to be celebrated, embraced, set free. Just like him. The northern mountains loomed before them, jagged peaks piercing the clouds like stone sentinels. Their small team had traveled for 2 days, leaving the temperate forests of Fire Country behind for the rugged wilderness that had once marked the boundary between Uchiha and Senju territories. Before the founding of Konoha united the warring clans, Naruto paused on a rocky outcropping, surveying the vast landscape while the others caught their breath. Hinata stood beside him, her Byakugan active as she scanned the mountains for signs of ancient structures or unusual chakra signatures. Behind them, Mito consulted a weathered scroll, comparing its faded map to their surroundings. Luffy, naturally energetic despite the difficult terrain, was engaged in an animated conversation with Brook about which mountain peak most resembled a meat bun. Only Nami seemed subdued, her gaze frequently turning southward, toward the sea they'd left behind. When she noticed Naruto watching her, she offered a half-hearted smile. Worried about your other friends? He asked, moving to join her. Nami nodded. Luffy and Brook are incredibly powerful in their own ways, but they're also, she gestured to where Luffy was now attempting to stretch his arm to a distant peak W. Brook composed an impromptu song about their journey, not exactly the most reliable in unfamiliar situations. I'm more concerned about Chopper and Usopp. They could be anywhere, scared and alone. We'll find them, Naruto promised. The conviction in his voice wasn't mere optimism. Since absorbing Nika's essence, he developed a strange sense of connection to displaced individuals from Nami's world. It was how they'd located Luffy and Brook so quickly. If they've come through to our world, they'll be drawn to us eventually. Nika's energy seems to pull connected people together. I hope you're right. Nami glanced at him curiously. Speaking of Nika, how are you managing with that power? You seem different than when we first met. more at ease? Naruto considered the question. He days since his conversation with Luffy, he'd experimented with small manifestations of Nika's power, allowing brief flashes of that golden energy to surface rather than suppressing it completely. Each time, Kurama had grumbled but grudgingly accommodated the foreign essence, their two disparate energies gradually learning to coexist. I'm starting to understand it better, he admitted. It's not like chakra, which I can shape and direct with specific techniques. Nika's power is more intuitive. It responds to emotions, especially joy and the desire for freedom. He smiled ruefully, which actually suits me pretty well. When I think about it, I've noticed, Nami replied, a hint of amusement in her tone. You and Luffy are disturbingly similar sometimes. The same reckless confidence, the same impossible optimism. Hey, I'm not reckless, Naruto protested with mock indignation. I've matured a lot since my genin days. Says the man who dove headfirst into a dimensional portal to rescue a complete stranger. That worked out pretty well, didn't it? Naruto's smile turned genuine. I got to meet you, after all. A faint blush colored Nami's cheeks, surprising them both. Before either could address the unexpected moment, Hinata called out from her position. I see something. About 3 kilometers ahead, nestled in that cirque between the twin peaks. There's a structure with unusual chakra patterns, similar to what I observed in Naruto after the Sun Temple incident. Mito hurried over, excitement visible on her scholarly features. That matches the descriptions in the ancient texts. The Moon Temple was said to be cradled between the horns of a stone beast, its face turned ever toward the night sky. She pointed to the formation Hinata had identified, where too sharp. Peaks indeed resembled horns flanking a natural amphitheater. Well, what are we waiting for? Luffy exclaimed, already stretching his arms toward a distant tree, preparing to catapult himself forward. Wait, Naruto caught his arm. We need to approach carefully. If Kenji is already there, a distant explosion interrupted him, followed by a plume of dust rising from precisely the location they'd been discussing. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly with the aftershock. I think that answers that question, Nami muttered, extending her clean attack to its full length. He's definitely there, and he's not being subtle about it. Naruto's expression hardened. Change of plans. Hinata, you and Mito approach from the eastern ridge, stay hidden and gather intel on the temple's structure and any defensive measures. Brook, go with them. Your speed and swordsmanship can protect them if needed. Nami, Luffy, and I will create a distraction to draw Kenji's attention away from the temple itself. Should we wait for your signal? Hinata asked, already moving to her position. Naruto grinned, a flash of gold appearing in his blue eyes. Trust me, you'll know when we make our move. As the first group departed, Naruto turned to his remaining companions. Nami, what's the weather forecast for the next hour? She blinked, surprised by the question, then glanced at the sky with a navigator's practiced eye. Increasing cloud cover from the northwest, dropping temperature, rising humidity. Probably a thunderstorm within the hour. These mountains create perfect conditions for sudden weather changes. Perfect. Naruto's grin widened. Think you can accelerate that process with your clean attack? A localized storm directly over the temple might provide excellent cover. Understanding dawned in Nami's eyes. I can definitely manage that. But I'll need to get closer, within 1 kilometer at least. Leave that to me, Luffy interjected, punching one fist into his palm. I'll get us there super fast. Minutes later, Naruto found himself questioning the wisdom of accepting Luffy's transportation offer as the rubber man stretched his arms to distant outcroppings, catapulting all 3 them through the air in a series of heart-stopping leaps. Nami, apparently accustomed to such travel methods, merely looked resigned as they soared between rocky spires. They landed on a sheltered ledge overlooking the temple site, close enough to observe the activity below. The Moon Temple was smaller than its solar counterpart, its architecture more severe, all sharp angles and obsidian surface. That seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. At its center stood a circular dais similar to the one Naruto had encountered in Uzushiogakure, but the pillars surrounding it were carved with lunar phases rather than solar symbols. Kenji Uchiha stood on the dais, accompanied by 4 shinobi in unmarked black attire. Their coordinated movements suggested they were performing some kind of ritual or technique. channeling chakra into the temple's central altar. He's trying to activate it, Naruto realized. Just like what happened with the Sun Temple. Can he do that? Nami asked. I thought these temples were connected to specific clans or bloodlines. The Uchiha were the Moon Temple's guardians, Naruto replied grimly. Kenji has the right bloodline, he just needs enough chakra to jumpstart the ancient mechanisms. Luffy cracked his knuckles, so we stop him before he finishes. Simple. Not so simple, Naruto cautioned. We need to understand what he's trying to accomplish first. Blindly interfering might make things worse. He turned to Nami. How quickly can you create that storm? She was already manipulating her Klima tact, generating small weather eggs that floated upward to seed the gathering clouds. Give me 5 minutes to build sufficient pressure systems. When it breaks, it'll break hard. Lightning, heavy rain, the works. Naruto nodded, then closed his eyes, aching inward to where Kurama and Nika's energies coexisted in uneasy balance. Kurama, I need to tap into Nika's power, just enough to create a distraction when Nami's storm hits. The Nine Tails growled reluctantly. The Sun God's essence is becoming more integrated with your chakra network. I can no longer fully suppress it if you choose to release it. Be careful, Naruto, this power follows different rules than chakra. I know, that's what I'm counting on. Opening his eyes, Naruto saw the storm clouds gathering with unnatural speed above the temple, darkening the afternoon sky to premature twilight. Below, Kenji had noticed the weather change, his head tilting upward with suspicion. Now, Nami, Naruto called. The navigator made a final adjustment to her Klima tact. Thunder tempo. A blinding flash split the sky, followed immediately by a deafening crack of thunder. Rain began to pour in sheets, reducing visibility to mere meters. In the sudden chaos, Kenji's ritual faltered as his assistants scattered for cover. My turn, Naruto said, feeling Nika's power surge through him like liquid sunshine. His hair began to lighten, strands of white replacing blonde as a golden glow emanated from his skin. Unlike previous manifestations, this time he didn't fight the transformation but welcomed it, embracing the wild joy that accompanied Nika's essence. Laughter bubbled up from deep within, that ancient, primal sound that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. As it escaped his lips, Naruto felt his body changing, becoming more elastic, more fluid. Gravity's hold on him lightened as though the concept of weight had become merely a suggestion rather than a law. Whoa, Luffy exclaimed, eyes wide with recognition. That's just like my Gear 5th. Indeed, Naruto now resembled Luffy's transformed state. White hair, golden eyes, body seemingly made of something between solid and liquid, reality bending slightly around him. But whereas Luffy's transformation maintained his rubber properties, Naruto's incorporated aspects of his chakra nature, creating a unique hybrid of Nika's power and shinobi abilities. Let's make an entrance, Naruto grinned, his voice carrying that same echoing quality it had before. He extended a hand to his companions. Trust me. Nami hesitated only briefly before taking his hand. Luffy grabbed on without reservation, his own body beginning to glow faintly in response to Naruto's transformation. With another wild laugh, Naruto leapt from the ledge, but instead of falling, they bounced on the very air itself, defying physics. In a way that made Nami gasp and Luffy whoop with delight. They ricocheted between raindrops, each impact sending them in a new direction until they landed dramatically in the center of the temple courtyard. Directly in front of a startled Kenji. Sorry to rain on your ritual, Naruto quipped, his transformed state making even his voice seem brighter somehow. But I think this temple's closed for renovations. Kenji's Sharingan activated instantly, Tomo spinning as he assessed the new threat. His expression shifted from surprise to calculation to something like reverence as he recognized Naruto's transformation. Nika, he breathed. The Sun God's vessel. So it's true. You did merge with the Guardian. His gaze shifted to Luffy. And you've brought another connected to Nika's essence. How convenient. Whatever you're planning with these temples, it stops now, Naruto declared, maintaining his transformed state despite the continuous drain on his chakra. You're disrupting the balance between worlds. Endangering countless people. Kenji's laugh held no joy, only bitter amusement. Balance. What do you know of balance, Uzumaki? Your clan helped the Senju nearly eradicate mine. He world you defend is built on the bones of my ancestors. He gestured to the temple around them. These sacred sites were entrusted to 7 clans by the sage himself, meant to maintain not just national boundaries but justice between worlds. Justice, Nami interjected. How is creating chaos and dragging people from their homes just? Sometimes worlds must be broken before they can be remade, Kenji replied cryptically. The Uchiha understood this. It's why we were entrusted with the Moon Temple. The moon reflects light but also governs darkness and rebirth. His hands formed a complex seal. Allow me to demonstrate. The temple floor beneath them suddenly glowed with intricate patterns, ancient symbols activating in response to Kenji's chakra. Naruto felt Nika's power react violently, both resonating with and opposing the lunar energy now filling the chamber. Look out, he shouted, grabbing Nami and Luffy as the floor beneath them began to liquefy into a swirling vortex of silver energy. But before they could escape, the vortex expanded, engulfing all 5 of them, Naruto, Nami, Luffy, Kenji, and one of his assistants who hadn't retreated quickly enough. The world around them dissolved into streaming ribbons of light and shadow, the sensation of falling without motion, of being everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. When reality reasserted itself, they were no longer in the Moon Temple. Instead, they stood in what appeared to be the ruins of a massive stone city, illuminated by a blood-red moon that dominated the alien sky. The architecture was unlike anything from either the shinobi or pirate worlds, cyclopean structures of black stone inscribed with symbols that hurt the eyes to look upon directly. Where are we? Nami whispered, instinctively moving closer to Naruto. A pocket dimension, Kenji replied, seeming entirely untroubled by their displacement. One of many connected to the Moon Temple. The Uchiha used these spaces for various purposes over the centuries: training, meditation, imprisonment of particularly dangerous foes. He spread his arms wide. Welcome to the Reflection Realm, where reality is negotiable. Naruto maintained his transformed state, though he could feel the strain increasing in this strange dimension. What do you want, Kenji? Why activate the temples? Why bring people from Nami's world to ours? I didn't bring them intentionally. That was an unexpected consequence of the Sun Temple's activation. Kenji began walking toward a massive structure that resembled a ziggurat, forcing the others to follow or be left behind in the alien landscape. But their arrival confirms what the ancient texts suggested: the barriers between dimensions are thinning. Soon, I'll be able to access the Nexus Realm and reshape both our worlds. Reshape them how? Luffy demanded, his usually carefree demeanor replaced by protective intensity. Kenji glanced back, Sharingan gleaming in the crimson moonlight. To create a world where the Uchiha were never betrayed. Where my family still lives. Where balance is restored. His expression darkened. But first, I need to gather the essence of all 7 guardians, beginning with Nika. He turned suddenly, hands forming seals at blinding speed. Lunar style. Mirror prison. Silver barriers erupted from the ground, surrounding Naruto in a cage of reflective surfaces. Each panel showed a different version of him, some in which he had failed during crucial moments of his life, others where darkness had consumed him, still others where those he loved had perished while he watched helplessly. The mirror prison traps its victim in reflections of their worst failures and fears, Kenji explained dispassionately. While extracting their chakra, or in your case, Nika's essence. Naruto struggled against the technique, but each movement seemed to strengthen the mirrored panels. Within the prison, his transformation began to flicker, the white returning to blonde, the golden glow dimming. Naruto, Nami called, raising her claim attacked, weather egg, thunder tempo. To her shock, nothing happened. Her weapon produced only a few sparks before falling inert in her hands. Natural laws are different here, Kenji explained with mild interest. Your weather manipulation requires atmospheric conditions that don't exist in the Reflection Realm. Luffy's response was more direct. Gum gum, pistol. His arm stretched toward Kenji, but at half its usual speed and power, allowing the Uchiha to sidestep easily. Even devil fruit abilities are diminished here. Kenji sounded almost apologetic. This realm dampens external powers while amplifying Uchiha visual prowess. It's why my clan chose it as our sanctuary. Inside the mirror prison, Naruto fought not just against the physical rest, but the psychological assault of the reflections. Images of pain-destroying Konoha, of Neji dying to protect him, of Sasuke consumed by hatred, each memory twisted to emphasize his failures rather than his eventual triumphs. These are just illusions, Kurama growled within him. Focused through your own doubts and magnified by the Uchiha's technique. I know, Naruto replied internally. But they feel so real. As his resistance weakened, he felt Nika's essence being drawn out of him, pulled toward Kenji in streams of golden light. The extraction was agonizing, like having his very soul unraveled thread by thread. Stop it, Nami shouted, attacking the mirror panels with her staff directly since her weather techniques wouldn't function. You're hurting him. Kenji ignored her, his focus entirely on the extraction ritual. Soon the Sun Guardian's essence will be mine to command. Then we'll return to our world and continue to the next temple. Luffy, despite the limitation on his powers, refused to surrender. Gear second. His skin flushed pink as he accelerated his blood flow, compensating for the dimensional dampening. Gum Gum Jet Pistol. The enhanced attack caught Kenji by surprise, striking him squarely in the chest and interrupting his concentration. The mirror prison flickered but remained intact, the extraction process merely slowing rather than stopping. Inside the prison, Naruto felt his consciousness fading as more of Nika's essence was pulled from him. The mirrors now showed his darkest fear, a world where he had failed everyone who depended on him. Where his dream of becoming Hokage had dissolved into a nightmare of isolation and rejection. Don't believe what you see, Kurama urged. Remember who you are. Remember what Nika's power truly represents. Freedom, joy, the breaking of chains, both literal and metaphorical. The essence of the Sun God wasn't just power, it was liberation. And in that moment of clarity, Naruto understood. He had been fighting to control Nika's power, to contain it within the familiar framework of shinobi techniques. But Nika's essence couldn't be controlled, it could only be embraced, expressed, celebrated. Instead of resisting the extraction, Naruto laughed, not the forced laughter of someone denying pain, but the genuine, heartfelt laughter of someone who recognizes the absurdity of fear itself. Each laugh grew stronger, more resonant, until it seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of the pocket dimension. The mirror panels began to crack, hairline fractures spreading across their surfaces as Naruto's laughter continued. The reflections distorted, then shattered as Nika's essence surged back into him, not just returning but expanding, filling him more completely than before. His transformation resumed, white hair billowing as if underwater, golden light pulsing outward in waves that seemed to bend the laws of reality around him. But this time, there was something new, a perfect synchronization between Naruto's will, Kurama's chakra, and Nika's essence. Three distinct powers harmonizing into something greater than their sum. That's impossible, Kenji gasped, Sharingan-wide as he witnessed the transformation. No vessel has ever fully integrated a guardian's essence. The ancient texts said it would destroy any mortal who attempted it. Naruto stepped through the shattered remains of the mirror prison, each footfall leaving momentary impressions in the fabric of reality itself. Maybe the texts were wrong. Or maybe, he's not just any mortal, Nami finished, a hint of wand. In her voice as she watched Naruto's complete transformation. He's Naruto Uzumaki. Luffy grinned widely, recognizing something of his own gear fifth in Naruto's new form. Kick his ass, Naruto. Kenji recovered quickly from his shock, hands forming new seals, lunar style, gravity well. The space around Naruto distorted as gravitational forces increased exponentially, attempting to crush him into the ground. Any normal shinobi, even one of Cage level, would have been instantly immobilized by the technique's power. But Naruto merely laughed again, the sound rippling through the distorted space around him. His body should have been flattened by the immense pressure, yet instead it seemed to flow with it, adapting to and then negating the unnatural gravity. That's the thing about freedom, Naruto said, his voice carrying that strange dual quality of his own and something far more ancient. It can't be contained, not by prisons, not by gravity, not even by dimensions. He moved toward Kenji in a blur of golden light, crossing the distance between them in an instant. The Uchiha's Sharingan tracked the movement, but his body couldn't react quickly enough to avoid Naruto's attack. Impel open-handed strike to the chest that contained no visible chakra yet sent Kenji flying backward into the ziggurat's stone wall with enough force to crack the ancient masonry. I don't want to hurt you, Naruto continued. Approaching the dazed Uchiha, I understand wanting to save your family, to rewrite a painful past. But this isn't the way. Kenji struggled to his feet, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. You have no idea what I've lost. What the Uchiha lost. The villages, the nations you protect, they're built on lies and genocide. Maybe they are, Naruto acknowledged, sir, prizing both Kenji and his companions with the admission. The shinobi world is far from perfect. Neither is Nami's world, from what she's told me. But destroying the dimensional barriers won't fix what's broken. It'll just break everything else too. For a moment, something like doubt flickered across Kenji's features. Then his expression hardened once more. Pretty words from the village's golden hero. But I've come too far to turn back now. He formed a final seal, channeling what appeared to be the last of his chakra. Izanagi. Reality itself seemed to warp around the Uchiha as his right eye clouded over. The price of the forbidden technique that allowed its user to briefly rewrite reality itself. The wounds Naruto had inflicted vanished as though they had never existed, and Kenji appeared several meters away. Beyond Naruto's immediate reach. We'll meet again, Sun God's vessel, Kenji promised, backing toward a shimmering distortion in the air that hadn't been there moments before. Apparently an exit from the pocket dimension. But next time, I'll be better prepared for your liberation. Before Naruto could pursue, Kenji and his remaining assistant stepped through the portal, which collapsed behind them in a flash of silver light. The unnatural gravity dissipated, leaving Naruto, Nami, and Luffy alone in the alien landscape. Slowly, Naruto's transformation receded, his hair returning to blonde though flecks of white remained scattered throughout. The golden glow dimmed but didn't disappear entirely, settling just beneath his skin like sunlight through water. Are you okay? Nami asked, moving to his side with concern evident in her expression. That extraction thing looked painful. Naruto nodded, taking stock of his condition. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. He flexed his fingers, feeling the perfect balance of energies flowing through him. I think I understand Nika's power now. It's not about control, it's about freedom. Including freedom from my own limitations. That's what I've been telling you. Luffy exclaimed. Gear 5th isn't about rules, it's about breaking them. We should focus on finding a way out of this. Reflection realm, Nami interjected, glancing uneasily at their surroundings. Preferably before anything else decides we look interesting. As if summoned by her words, movement rippled through the shadows between the ancient structures. Formless shapes began to coalesce, drawn to the residual energy of their confrontation with Kenji. Guardians, Naruto realized, recognizing the distinctive aura of the entities now surrounding them. This dimension has its own protectors. The shadowy figures advanced, their forms becoming more distinct, humanoid but not quite human, with features that shifted between animal and mineral aspects. Their eyes glowed with the same silver light as the moon overhead, fixed unwaveringly on the three intruders. I don't suppose you can just talk to them? Nami asked hopefully, raising Claim attack despite its apparent ineffectiveness in this realm. Naruto reached inward once more, drawing on his newly harmonized connection to Nika's power. A partial transformation would suffice, hair whitening, eyes glowing golden. But maintaining his normal physical form otherwise. Worth a try, he replied, stepping forward to address the approaching guardians. We mean no harm to this realm or its balance. We seek only to return to our own worlds. The lead guardian paused, tilting its head in a disturbingly inhuman manner. When it spoke, the words seemed to form directly in their minds rather than through audible sound. You carry the sun's essence, yet you stand in the moon's domain. This imbalance cannot be permitted. We didn't choose to come here, Naruto explained. Kenji Uchiha brought us against our will. He's the one disrupting the balance between temples and dimensions. The Guardian considered this, its silver eyes flaring briefly. The Uchiha Guardian has fallen. The temples awaken out of sequence. The convergence accelerates. Convergence. Nami repeated. Kenji mentioned the two. What exactly is converging? All dimensions were once one. The Great Division C. REATED separate worlds to prevent the chaos of unlimited possibility. The guardians and temples maintain this separation. But now the cycle renews. Luffy scratched his head. So, all the worlds are smooshin' back together. Like dough. The guardian's form rippled, perhaps the equivalent of a shrug. Crude but accurate. When all 7 temples activate, the original world will be reborn. All that exists now will be unmade. Naruto felt a chill run through him. How do we stop it? There must be a way to stabilize the barriers. Balance must be restored. Each temple requires its proper guardian. The Sun Temple has found its vessel in you, child of prophecy. But the others remain adrift. The other 5 temples, Nami realized. We need to find them before Kenji does. The guardian's form began to fade. The gathering of entities retreating back into the shadows. The way opens. Follow the moonlight path. Return to your realm before the blood moon sets, or remain here eternally. As the guardians vanished, a silver pathway appeared, stretching from where they stood toward the horizon. Unlike the oppressive red glow that dominated the rest of this dimension, the path shimmered with gentle moonlight, offering guidance through the alien landscape. I guess that's our invitation to leave, Naruto observed, letting his partial transformation subside. We should hurry. I don't want to test whether that remain here eternally part was literal. As they followed the moonlight path, Nami walked beside Naruto, her expression thoughtful. So we need to find 5 more temples, each with its own guardian entity. And somehow restore proper balance before these dimensions collapse into each other. That's what it sounds like, Naruto agreed. Though I'm still not clear on what these guardians are supposed to be. Nika seems to be some kind of joy and freedom deity, but what about the others? In my world, there are ancient weapons named after gods, Luffy contributed unexpectedly. Pluton, Poseidon, Uranus. Maybe there's a connection. Naruto glanced at him with surprise. Sometimes it was easy to forget that beneath Luffy's simplistic exterior lay a surprising insightfulness. Could be. We should ask Mito when we get back, assuming we can find a way back to the others. The path led them to what appeared to be a frozen waterfall, silver liquid suspended in mid-flow down a sheer cliff face. As they approached, the liquid began to move again, but in reverse, flowing upward to form a vertical pool that rippled with images of the moon temple they had left behind. A portal back, Nami breathed with relief. Finally some good news. Before they could step through, however, Naruto paused, a strange sensation washing over him. Wait, do you feel that? A gentle tugging, lick, an invisible thread pulling at his consciousness. Following the sensation, Naruto turned away from the portal toward a small structure they had overlooked, a simple shrine partially concealed behind tumbled stones. There's something here, he murmured, approaching cautiously. Something connected to Nika's power. Inside the shrine stood a simple pedestal bearing a cylindrical object wrapped in ancient cloth. With careful hands, Naruto unwrapped it to reveal a scroll case made of material that resembled neither wood nor metal but something in between. What is it? Nami asked, peering over his shoulder. I'm not sure, Naruto admitted, feeling Nika's essence resonate with the object. But it's important. I can feel it. Securing the scroll case in his pack, Naruto rejoined his companions at the portal. Together, they stepped through the liquid silver surface, the strange dimension dissolving around them as they returned to the physical world. They emerged not in the moon temple as expected, but on the forested slope several hundred meters away, where Hinata, Mito, and Brook waited with obvious concern. Naruto-kun. Hinata rushed forward, relief evident in her pale eyes. We saw the temple activate and then you disappeared. We've been searching for hours. Hours, Nami repeated with surprise. We were only in that dimension for maybe 30 minutes. Time flows differently in pocket dimensions, Mito explained, her scholarly demeanor reasserting itself despite her evident relief at their return. What happened? Did you encounter Kenji? As Naruto recounted their experience in the reflection realm, including Kenji's escape and the warning from the Guardians, storm clouds gathered once more above the mountain range. Natural this time, rather than Nami's creation, but no less ominous for it. The convergence of worlds, Mito mused when he finished. There are references to such an event in the oldest Uzumaki records, a time before time, when all possibilities existed simultaneously. The texts speak of the Great Division as an act of mercy, preventing the chaos of unlimited potential from destroying existence itself. But now it's happening again, Hinata added softly. And we need to find 5 more temples to restore balance. Lightning flashed across the darkening sky, illuminating the moon temple in the distance. Though they had disrupted Kenji's ritual, the structure still pulsed with silver energy, activated but unstable without its proper guardian. What's in the scroll case? Brook inquired, gesturing to the object now secured in Naruto's pack. I don't know yet, Naruto admitted. But it resonated with Nika's essence. I think it might contain information about the temples or the guardians. As rain began to fall, they sought shelter in a small cave. The temple's distant glow providing an eerie counterpoint to the storm's fury. While the others prepared a modest camp, Naruto carefully opened the scroll case, revealing a document written in script so ancient it appeared to shift and change as he tried to focus on it. I can't read this, he said with frustration. It's like the words don't want to be seen. Mito examined the scroll with scholarly interest. This appears to be written in the primordial script, a language so old it predates the Sage of Six Paths. Few could ever decipher it. She glanced at Naruto thoughtfully. But perhaps Nika's essence gives you a connection to its meaning, even if the actual text remains indecipherable. Understanding her suggestion, Naruto closed his eyes, allowing a touch of Nika's power to surface. When he opened them again, golden light illuminated the ancient script, which no longer shifted but resolved into comprehensible shapes. It's a map, he realized, spreading the scroll wider. Not of physical locations exactly, but of connections, the relationships between the 7 temples and their guardians. The others gathered around as Naruto traced the intricate diagram depicted on the scroll. 7 interconnected symbols formed a complex pattern. The sun and moon they had already encountered, plus a mountain, a sea, a storm, a forest, and a star. According to this, each temple requires a specific type of vessel to host its guardian, Naruto continued, the knowledge flowing into him through Nika's connection to the ancient text. The Sun Temple needed someone who embodies freedom and joy. The Moon Temple seeks someone who understands illusion and reflection. Qualities the Uchiha were known for, Mito nodded. Which explains why they were chosen as its guardians. Other temples have similar requirements, Naruto said, scanning the text further. The Mountain Temple needs strength and steadfastness. The Sea Temple, adaptability and depth. The Storm Temple, passion and change. The Forest Temple, growth and harmony. And the Star Temple, he paused, the text becoming momentarily unclear. The Star Temple is different somehow. It connects to all the others, serving as a keystone for the entire system. Nami leaned closer, studying the map intently. Does it say where these other temples are located? Not exactly, Naruto frowned. But it suggests they repositioned according to some kind of natural balance. If the Sun Temple is in Uzushiogakure and the Moon Temple is here in the mountains of Fire Country, then the Mountain Temple would logically be in Earth Country, Mito suggested. Perhaps near Iwagakure. And the Sea Temple in Water Country, Hinata added. The Storm Temple might be in Lightning Country, given the frequent tempests along their coastline. Which would place the Forest Temple in the deep woods of the Land of Forests, Naruto concluded. But that still leaves the Star Temple unaccounted for. The center, Luffy said unexpectedly, pointing to the diagram where all 7 symbols connected. If it's the keystone, wouldn't it be in the middle of all the others? The simplicity and logic of Luffy's observation surprised them all. Examining the map again, they realized he was right. If the other 6 temples formed points on a circle, the Star Temple would be located precisely in the center. That would place it somewhere in the Land of Rivers. Mito calculated, a relatively small nation between Wind and Fire countries. Then that's where Kenji will head next, Naruto decided. Not to the other elemental temples, but straight to the keystone. If he controls the Star Temple, he could potentially manipulate the entire system. Thunder crashed outside their shelter, the storm intensifying as night fell completely. Within the cave, the golden light emanating from Naruto's eyes cast long shadows across his companions' faces as they contemplated the challenge before them. So we have our next destination, Nami said, her navigator's mind already calculating routes and travel times. The Land of Rivers, and a race against Kenji to find the Star Temple, Brook added solemnly. Before this convergence destroys both our worlds. Naruto rolled the scroll carefully, securing it once more in its case. As he did, he caught Nami watching him, her expression a complex mixture of concern, curiosity, and something else. Something warmer that made his heart beat just a fraction faster. "We should rest while we can," he suggested, breaking the momentary connection between them. "Tomorrow we head south, toward the land of rivers. And hopefully, toward answers about how to stop this convergence before it's too late." As the others settled in for the night, Naruto took first watch, positioning himself at the cave entrance where he could observe both the storm and the still glowing moon temple in the distance. Within him, Nika's essence pulsed in time with distant thunder, a reminder of the power he now carried and the responsibility that came with it. The convergence accelerates, the Guardian had warned. And somehow, Naruto knew that their journey was only beginning, that the true test of both his newfound power and his deepest convictions still lay ahead. In the darkness, another strand of his hair turned permanently white, a visible sign of Nika's increasing integration with his being. And as lightning split the sky once more, Naruto smiled. Not his usual smile, but the impossibly wide grin of a sun god who found joy even in the heart of a storm. For what was a storm to one who carried the sun within? Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Convergence of tides. Dawn painted the horizon in watercolor hues of amber and rose as Naruto's team descended from the northern mountains, leaving the activated moon temple behind them. The ancient structure's silver glow had diminished to a faint pulse visible only to Hinata's Byakugan, like a heartbeat awaiting its proper guardian. Their journey toward the land of rivers had begun in earnest. The weight of two worlds resting on their shoulders. Naruto walked at the group's fore, occasionally tugging at strands of his hair which had permanently whitened, 23 of them at last count. Each a physical manifestation of Nika's increasing integration with his being. Since fully embracing the sun god's essence in the reflection realm, he'd experienced subtle but profound changes. Moments of preternatural awareness, bursts of impossible agility, and a persistent urge to find humor in even the most dire circumstances. The balance continues to shift. Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. Nika's essence grows stronger with each passing hour. "I know," Naruto replied silently. "But it doesn't feel like a threat anymore. More like remembering something I always knew but somehow forgot." The Nine Tails rumbled thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's the nature of gods, to be forgotten and remembered in endless cycles. Still, be cautious. Even benevolent deities can overwhelm mortal vessels." Their internal dialogue was interrupted as Nami quickened her pace to walk beside him, her keen navigator's eyes studying the terrain ahead. "According to your maps, we should reach the border of the land of rivers by nightfall if we maintain this pace." She gestured to gathering clouds in the southeast. "Though that weather system might slow us down." Naruto nodded, appreciating both her practical knowledge and the way morning light caught copper highlights in her orange hair. Their shared experiences in the reflection realm fostered a growing connection between them, tentative but undeniable, like spring buds before flowering. "We could take the eastern route through the valley," he suggested. "Longer distance but Betty, our cover if Kenji has allies watching the main roads." "Smart," Nami agreed with an approving smile. "I've learned to appreciate caution after years of Luffy charging headlong into every situation." As if summoned by his name, the rubber man bounded forward from where he'd been enthusiastically describing Grand Line adventures to a bemused Hinata. "Did someone say my name? Are we talking about food? I'm starving." "We're discussing routes, not restaurants," Nami replied with the fond exasperation of long familiarity. "Though we should probably stop soon to rest and eat." Mito approached, the ancient scroll case secured carefully in her pack. The Uzumaki scholar had spent much of their travel time studying the artifact, making meticulous notes in a journal. "There's a clearing 2 kilometers ahead that would serve well for a brief respite. I've been analyzing the energetic patterns from both activated temples, and I believe I've identified something significant." They waited until reaching the designated clearing before elaborating. While Brook produced a violin to keep Luffy entertained, a traveler's sonata to lighten weary feet, yo-ho-ho-ho, the rest gathered around a small map Mito spread across a flat stone. "The sun and moon temples aren't just random locations," she explained, marking their positions with small seals. They form the beginning of a precise geometric pattern. If my calculations are correct, the remaining 5 temples should be positioned according to the ancient principle of cosmic harmony, a system predating even the Sage of Six Paths. Hinata activated her Byakugan, studying the map with her enhanced perception. The chakra pathways between the marked temples, they're faint, but definitely present. Like threads of energy connecting distant points. Precisely, Mito confirmed, her green eyes bright with scholarly excitement. These pathways form what ancient texts called the dimensional lattice, a network that both separates and connects various realms of existence. When properly balanced, the lattice maintains stability between dimensions. But with 2 temples already activated out of sequence, the whole system becomes unstable. Naruto finished, understanding dawning. That's what's causing these rifts between our world and Nami's. And potentially others, Mito added grimly. The ancient texts speak of countless dimensions, each with its own laws of nature and forms of life. If the convergence continues unchecked, the barriers between all these worlds will collapse. Nami frowned, absently twirling a lock of hair around her fin. Jeer, a habit Naruto had noticed emerged when she was processing complex information. So finding the Star Temple isn't enough. We need to somehow restore proper sequence to the entire system. Which means finding suitable vessels for each guardian, Hinata concluded softly. People who embody the qualities each temple requires. A contemplative silence fell over the group, broken only by the distant melody of Brook's violin. The magnitude of their task seemed to expand with each new revelation, no longer simply returning Nami and her friends home, but preserving the fundamental structure of reality itself. One problem at a time, Naruto decided, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had emerged since the war. First, we locate the Star Temple. Then we determine how to stabilize the system. Kenji clearly has knowledge about these temples that we don't, but he's working alone while we have. He glanced around at their diverse group, unique advantages. As if to punctuate his statement, a sudden chill swept through the clearing. Brook's melody faltered mid-note, the skeleton musician tilting his skull toward the forest's edge. We have company, he murmured, bony fingers hefting to rest on his concealed sword cane. Naruto sensed it too. Multiple chakra signatures approaching rapidly from the southeast, their pattern unfamiliar yet somehow resonant with Nika's energy within him. Not Kenji, he informed the others, rising to his feet. But definitely not friendly either. Luffy bounced up, cracking his knuckles with anticipation. Finally, I was getting bored with all the walking and talking. Formation Beta, Naruto instructed, falling into tactical patterns honed through years of combat. Hinata, perimeter scan. Mito, protective barrier. Nami, Brook, and Luffy, we can handle ourselves. Nami interjected confidently, extending her Klima tact. Just tell us where to position. Before Naruto could respond, the forest edge erupted in a barrage of unusual projectiles, not kunai or shuriken, but what appeared to be compressed spheres of dark energy that detonated on impact, releasing waves of disorienting force. Black hole bombs, a gravelly voice called from the treeline. Courtesy of Admiral Teach, 5 figures emerged from the forest, each bearing a distinct piratical appearance that immediately identified them as natives of Nami's world rather than shinobi. Their leader, a barrel-chested man with a tripartite beard and missing teeth, carried a peculiar pistol that seemed to swallow light around its barrel. Blackbeard pirates, Nami hissed, our expression darkening with recognition and loathing. Van Augur's snipers. The pirate laughed, revealing additional gaps in his dentition. The navigator remembers us. Admiral Teach will be pleased. When we deliver both you and Straw Hat to him, along with whatever caused these dimensional disturbances. Naruto stepped forward, positioning himself between the pirates and his companions. How did you cross between dimensions? Same way as them, I reckon. The pirate jerked his head toward Nami and Luffy. Got caught in some golden fog, ended up in this strange world. But unlike these fools, we immediately recognized the opportunity. New worlds mean new treasures to plunder, new powers to claim. Luffy's usual carefree demeanor vanished, replaced by the focused intensity that marked him as a captain despite his youthful appearance. Where's the rest of your crew? Where's Blackbeard? Scattered across this realm, gathering intelligence and resources. The pirate's grin widened. Admiral, Teach sensed something powerful awakening, something that could make him king of not just one world, but all worlds. Naruto felt Nika's essence stir within him, responding to the threat these dimensional interlopers represented. Golden energy flickered beneath his skin, not fully emerging but ready to be called upon. "You're disrupting the balance between worlds," he stated firmly. "Return to your own dimension, or we'll be forced to send you back ourselves." The pirate captain laughed again, raising his strange weapon. Big words from a pretty boy with funny marks on his face. Let's see if we're still talking after tasting Admiral Teach's borrowed power. Black vortex. The pistol discharged not a bullet but a swirling sphere of gravitational force that expanded as it traveled, threatening to consume everything in its path. Hinata moved with practiced grace, her gentle fist technique striking the sphere with precise chakra control, disrupting its integrity before it could reach full power. "Now," Naruto called, his hands forming familiar seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A dozen Naruto duplicates materialized, charging the pirate group from multiple angles. Simultaneously, Luffy launched himself skyward, body stretching to impossible lengths. "Gum Gum Storm," the rubber man shouted, unleashing a barrage of rapid-fire punches that rained down upon their opponents. The pirates scattered, revealing combat abilities far beyond ordinary humans. One transformed his arms into scythe-like blades, another seemed to phase through solid matter, while a third generated concussive sound waves that disrupted Naruto's clones. "Devil fruit users," Nami explained quickly, generating weather eggs from her Klima tact. "Each has a unique power granted by eating a mystical fruit. Similar to Kekkei Genkei," Mito observed, completing a protective barrier seal around their supplies. But acquired rather than inherited. The battle escalated rapidly, the clearing transforming into a chaotic arena of clashing abilities. Brook moved with blinding speed, his sword flickering like moonlight as he engaged the scythe-armed pirate. Hinata's gentle fist neutralized the phase shifter, her Byakugan, allowing her to predict exactly when he would rematerialize. Luffy's rubber physiology proved impervious to the soundwave attacks, his laughter echoing as he stretched and contorted around the assaults. Naruto focused on the leader, whose gravity-manipulating weapon presented the greatest threat. Weaving between distortions in space, he formed a Rasengan in his palm, the swirling chakra sphere countering the pirate's gravitational attacks when they collided. Impressive technique, the pirate acknowledged, adjusting his weapon settings. But Admiral Teach's power can devour anything, even light itself. Black hole maximum. The pistol's barrel expanded impossibly, darkness flowing outward to create a miniature event horizon that began pulling everything toward it with inexorable force. Trees uprooted, rocks lifted from the earth, and even light seemed to bend around the growing singularity. "Everyone, fall back," Naruto ordered, sensing the escalating danger. This wasn't merely a Devil fruit ability. Something about it resonated wrongly with the dimensional fabric itself, as though it were exploiting the weakened barriers between worlds. Nami, instead of retreating, stepped forward, with determination flashing in her brown eyes. "Weather egg. Pressure front," she called, her Klima tact generating a specialized atmospheric condition. Thunder breed tempo. Lightning coalesced around her staff, drawn from the storm clouds she'd been manipulating since the battle began. Instead of releasing it as an attack, however, she directed the electrical energy into the growing black hole. The resulting electromagnetic interaction created a spectacular feedback loop, lightning and darkness spiraling together before exploding outward in a concussive blast that knocked combatants on both sides off their feet. When the dust settled, the pirate leader lay unconscious, his weapon shattered beyond repair. His companions, seeing their advantage lost, beat a hasty retreat into the forest, dragging their insensate captain with them. "They'll be back," Nami said grimly, collapsing her Klima tact. "Blackbeard's crew never gives up easily." Naruto studied her with newfound respect, impressed by her quick thinking and tactical application of her weather abilities. "That was brilliant," he said sincerely, using electromagnetic forces to disrupt his gravitational attack. A light blush colored her cheeks at the praise. Navigation isn't just about maps and currents. It's understanding how natural forces interact, and sometimes, how to make them interact in ways nature never intended. "We should move quickly," Hinata suggested, scanning the surrounding area with her Byakugan. "They're regrouping approximately 2 kilometers east, likely to report our position to others." Agreed, Naruto nodded. But this confirms our suspicions. The dimensional barriers are weakening. If Blackbeard's pirates could cross over, others might too. Mito finished securing their supplies, her expression troubled. And not just people. Laws of physics, natural forces, even concepts unique to specific dimensions might begin bleeding through. The pirates' abilities operated here despite our world having no devil fruits. What happens when more fundamental differences begin to merge? The gravity of her warning hung heavy as they resumed their journey, now moving with greater urgency toward the land of rivers. Naruto found himself walking beside Nami again, drawn to her pragmatic resilience in the face of escalating chaos. In your world, he began curiously, are there many powers like what those pirates displayed? Devil fruits come in 3 main types, she explained, seeming to appreciate the distraction of technical discussion. Paramesha types alter the user's body or environment, like Luffy's rubber abilities. Zone types allow transformation into animals or mythical creatures. And Logia types, the most dangerous, let users become, create, and control natural elements. Similar to our elemental nature transformations. Naruto observed, though our techniques require chakra control rather than fruit consumption. Your abilities seem more versatile, Nami noted. But devil fruit, it can grant powers beyond anything natural, at the cost of never being able to swim again. A significant price in a world of oceans, Naruto acknowledged. Their conversation continued as the landscape gradually transformed from the rugged foothills of Fire Country to the gentler terrain that marked the approach to the land of rivers. By late afternoon, they reached a tributary of the Great Rive. Our system that gave the country its name, a clear, swift-flowing waterway cutting through verdant forest. We should follow the river south, Naruto decided after consulting with Mito. If the star temple truly occupies the central position in the dimensional lattice, it would logically be located near a significant convergence point in the natural landscape. As they established camp for the evening on a defensible riverbank, Naruto found himself drawn to the water's edge. Removing his sandals, he sat with feet submerged in the cool current, watching the sunset paint the surface with fiery reflections. The day's exertions had left him physically tired but mentally alert, his senses heightened by Nika's continuing integration. He became aware of Hinata's approach before she spoke, her chakra signature as familiar to him as his own after years of friendship and shared battles. The Hyuga heiress settled beside him with characteristic grace, her lavender eyes reflecting the sunset as she gazed across the river. "How are you feeling, Naruto-kun?" she asked softly. Truly, Naruto appreciated her perceptiveness. While the others focused on the external mission, Hinata alone had noticed the internal changes he was experiencing. Different, he admitted, like I'm becoming more myself and simultaneously something else entirely. Nika's essence doesn't feel foreign anymore, it feels like remembering rather than changing. Hinata nodded, understanding in her gentle gaze. Your chakra network is adapting remarkably. The golden energy no longer conflicts with your natural blue chakra or Kurama's red, they're harmonizing. Creating something new. I should be more concerned about it, Naruto acknowledged with a rueful smile. But it's hard to worry when the primary emotion Nika's essence brings is joy. Joy has always been your strength, Hinata replied, her voice carrying a depth of emotion carefully contained. Even in the darkest moments, you found reasons to smile, to keep believing. Perhaps that's why Nika's essence chose you, you already embodied what the Sun God represents. Naruto turned to study her profile, appreciating the woman she had become, confident yet gentle, powerful yet kind. Their relationship had evolved into something precious since her confession during Pain's attack, a deep friendship built on mutual respect and understanding, even though romance had never fully blossomed between them. I've noticed you watching Nami, Hinata continued, surprising him with her directness. There's a connection forming there. Heat rose to Naruto's cheeks. We've just been through some intense experiences together. Hinata's soft laugh held no bitterness, only affectionate amusement. You never could hide your feelings well, Naruto-kun. It's one of your most endearing qualities. She placed her hand briefly atop his. I just want you to know that I'm happy for you, whatever path your heart takes. Before he could respond, a commotion from the main camp drew their attention. Rising quickly, They returned to find Mito activating protective seals around the perimeter while Luffy bounced excitedly near the forest edge. "Someone's coming," the rubber man announced unnecessarily. "And I think it's Robin," Nami exclaimed as a tall, elegant woman with raven hair emerged from the trees, her composed demeanor a stark contrast to the disheveled state of her clothing. "Nami, Luffy, Brook," the newcomer acknowledged with a small smile that conveyed profound relief despite her outward calm. "I've been tracking you for 3 days. This world has unusual navigational challenges." Embraces and introductions followed quickly. Nico Robin, archaeologist of the Straw Hat Pirates, possessed both a razor-sharp intellect and the ability to sprout dupli Cate limbs from any surface, a power she demonstrated by simultaneously shaking hands with 3 different people using arms that blossomed from the ground between them. "The flower fruit," she explained to the astonished shinobi. "A paramesha type that allows me to replicate and bloom parts of my body from any surface within my range." "Fascinating," Mito murmured, scientific curiosity overcoming her initial surprise. "The replication occurs instantly, without hand seals or chakra molding." Once immediate greetings concluded, Robin's expression turned serious. "I haven't come alone," she informed them. "I've been pursued since arriving in this world, individuals in black cloaks who can move through shadows. They've been tracking all-dimensional visitors, apparently under orders from someone named Kenji." Naruto and Hinata exchanged concerned glances. "Shadow walkers," Naruto identified. "Specialized tracking units, usually employed by daimyos rather than hidden villages. If Kenji has hired them, he has significant resources beyond his Uchiha abilities. They're not the only ones searching," Robin continued. "I encountered another group, pirates serving Blackbeard, near a coastal village 3 days ago. They've allied with local brigands, exchanging devil fruit knowledge for information about this world's geography and power structures." "Opportunistic as always," Nami muttered. "Blackbeard never wastes a chance to expand his influence." "There's more." Robin's tone grew even more serious. "Before finding you, I discovered ancient ruins approximately 20 kilometers southwest of here. The architecture matches nothing from our world, but the symbols." She produced a small notebook, opening it to reveal precise sketches of angular glyphs. "These are remarkably similar to the poneglyphs of our world, the ancient stone texts that reveal the void centuries' history." Mito nearly dropped the protective seal she'd been adjusting, rushing over to examine Robin's drawings. "These are primordial script variants," she exclaimed. "The same language as the scroll from the Moon Temple, but a different dialect or evolutionary stage." "You can read them?" Robin asked, orderly excitement momentarily overriding her usual reserve. "Not directly," Mito admitted. "But Naruto can, through his connection to Nika's essence." All eyes turned to Naruto, who accepted Robin's notebook with careful hands. The symbols initially appeared as meaningless scratches, but when he channeled a whisper of Nika's power, just enough to turn his eyes golden, the glyphs rearranged themselves into comprehensible patterns. "It's a warning," he translated slowly, the ancient language flowing into his mind as though remembering rather than learning. "About the Star Temple, it says, the convergence point guards the Nexus Key. Only one who stands between worlds may unlock the central path. When Sun and Moon have awakened out of sequence, the star will call its chosen vessel through the thinning veil." "A prophecy," Hinata suggested. "Or instructions," Robin countered, her analytical mind dissecting the translation. "It specifically mentions Sun and Moon awakening out of sequence, exactly what has already occurred. And it refers to someone who stands between worlds as the Star Temple's vessel." Naruto continued reading, brow furrowed in concentration. "There's more. The 7 Mu Saint find balance in new vessels when the old guardians fall. But beware the inverse one who seeks to collapse all boundaries into primordial chaos, for they misunderstand the purpose of separation." "The inverse one," Nami repeated thoughtfully. "Could that be Kenji? He specifically mentioned wanting to reshape both worlds." "It would fit," Naruto agreed, returning the notebook to Robin. "But SA ruins you found, could they be the Star Temple itself?" Robin shook her head. "I don't believe so. They appeared to be a waystation or marker rather than a temple complex." However, she withdrew a small, crystalline object from her pack. "I did find this embedded in the central monolith. The object resembled a multifaceted gem approximately the size of a plum, its interior swirling with miniature galaxies of light that shifted and changed as they watched. When Robin placed it in Naruto's palm, both Nika's essence and Kurama's chakra responded immediately, the former with resonant warmth, the latter with cautious alertness. A dimensional fragment, Kurama identified. Similar to Kagaya's technique, but more refined. This could create a stable pathway between specific points in different dimensions. It's a key of some kind, Naruto relayed aloud. Not for a physical lock, but for pathways between dimensions. If we can understand how to use it, we might be able to create stable passages back to your world without disrupting the entire dimensional system. As night fell fully, they gathered around a small, carefully shielded fire to share information and develop strategy. R.O. Bin's analytical perspective proved invaluable, her archaeological background offering insights into the historical context of the temples that even Mito's scholarly knowledge couldn't provide. In our world, Robin explained, ancient weapons named after gods were created during the Void Century, a period of history deliberately erased from records. These weapons possessed power beyond ordinary comprehension, capable of reshaping the world itself. Like the seven temples here, Mito nodded. Created to maintain dimensional boundaries after some cataclysmic event the ancient texts call the Great Division. What if they're connected? Naruto suggested, the crystal key resting on a cloth between them. Not just similar systems, but actually related. If dimensions were once a single reality before being divided, both your ancient weapons and our temples might be remnants of whatever caused that division. The discussion continued late into the night, theories and strategies proposed and refined. Eventually, they established a watch rotation and settled to rest, knowing the journey would resume at dawn. Naruto took the first watch, positioning himself where he could observe both the camp and the surrounding forest while maintaining awareness of the river at their backs. An hour into his vigil, soft footsteps approached, Nami, wrapped in a light blanket against the evening chill. Her expression thoughtful as she joined him. Couldn't sleep? Naruto asked quietly. She shook her head, copper hair catching the moonlight. Too many thoughts. Every time we learn something new about these temples and dimensions, the questions multiply rather than diminish. That's how important discoveries usually work, Naruto offered with a small smile. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Philosophical for a self-proclaimed knucklehead ninja, Nami teased gently, settling beside him on the fallen log that served as his lookout perch. I've had good teachers, he replied, thinking of Jiraiya, Kakashi, and all those who had shaped his understanding of the world, and plenty of hard lessons. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, the river's gentle flow providing ambient accompaniment to the forest's nocturnal symphony. When Nami spoke again, her voice carried a vulnerability rarely displayed. What if we can't fix this? She asked softly. What if the dimensions collapse? Or we end up trapped in the wrong world, or we'll figure it out, Naruto assured her, his natural optimism reinforced by Nika's essence. Between your navigation skills, Robin's knowledge, Mito's research, Hinata's perception, and whatever this sun god power is doing to me, we've got a pretty good team. Not to mention a rubber man who refuses to accept impossible odds and a skeleton musician who's already beaten death once. That earned a genuine laugh, the sound warming something in Naruto's chest. When you put it that way, how could we possibly fail? Exactly, he grinned. Besides, I promised to help you get home, and I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way. Nami studied him in the moonlight, her expression softening. You remind me of Luffy's times, that absolute confidence that things will work out if you just try hard enough. It should be annoying, but somehow. She hesitated, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Somehow it makes me believe it too. The moment between them stretched, charged with unspoken possibilities. Naruto found himself noticing details he'd missed before, the constellation of freckles across her nose, the intelligent warmth in her brown eyes, the determined set of her mouth that could transform instantly from serious to smiling. Before either could bridge the growing silence, a distinctive sound broke the night's tranquility. Approaching footsteps, moving with deliberate stealth but detectable to Naruto's heightened senses. Someone's coming, he whispered, instantly alert. Not from the forest, from the river path. Nami reached for her claim attacked while Naruto palmed a kunai, both rising silently to face the potential threat. What emerged from the riverside trail, however, was not the expected enemy, but a solitary woman in traditional shrine maiden attire, white haori over crimson hakama, long black hair bound in ceremonial fashion with golden ornaments that caught the moonlight. She carried no visible weapons, yet moved with the confident grace of one trained in martial disciplines. Upon seeing them, she stopped at a respectful distance and bowed formally. Uzumaki Naruto, she addressed him without question or uncertainty. Vessel of Nika, guardian of the Sun Temple. I am Amaterasu, last priestess of the Star Shrine. I have come seeking your aid in preventing the convergence of worlds. Dawn found them traveling southwest along the river, now accompanied by the mysterious priestess who had appeared in the night. Amaterasu moved with serene poise despite the rapid pace Naruto set, her traditional garments somehow remaining pristine even as they navigated challenging terrain. She spoke little but observed much, her obsidian eyes missing nothing as she studied each member of their unusual company. How exactly did you find us? Mito asked, voicing the question that had lingered since the priestess's arrival. And how did you know about Naruto's connection to Nika? The star. Our shrine exists at the convergence of dimensional currents, Amaterasu explained, her formal speech patterns distinct from their usual vernacular. When the Sun Temple activated out of sequence, followed by the moon, the resulting disturbance created ripples that our seers could track. As for Uzumaki-san's role, her gaze shifted to Naruto, noting the increasing number of white strands in his blonde hair. The vessel of a guardian bears an unmistakable spiritual signature, particularly to those trained to perceive such things. Your shrine, Robin inquired with scholarly interest, is it connected to the Star Temple we seek? The shrine guards the approach to the temple, Amaterasu confirmed. For millennia, my order has maintained vigil over the central node of the dimensional lattice, passing down knowledge of the Great Division and the 7 guardians who maintain separation between realms. Then you know how to stabilize the system, Naruto stated rather than asked. How to stop these worlds from converging? The priestess's expression remained impassive, but something like sorrow flickered briefly in her dark eyes. I know what the ancient texts prescribe, yes. Whether it can be accomplished with only 2 guardians properly awakened remains uncertain. Before she could elaborate, Hinata activated her Byakugan in response to some subtle shift in their surroundings. Multiple chakra signatures approaching rapidly from the southeast, she reported. 12, no, 15 individuals. Their movement pattern suggests coordinated shinobi training. Shadow walkers, Robin identified grimly. The same who pursued me before. Naruto made swift tactical calculations. We can't outrun specialized trackers, and fighting could alert Kenji to our position if these are his agents. We need cover and a defensible position. He turned to Amaterasu. How far to your shrine? Approximately 6 kilometers, she replied without hesitation. But there is a secondary shrine out. Post 2 kilometers ahead that offers both sanctuary and defensive seals. Lead the way, Naruto decided. Hinata, rear guard with Brook. Luffy, right flank. Robin and Mito, center with Amaterasu. Nami and I will take point. They moved with practiced coordination, accelerating to shinobi traveling speed while Luffy carried Robin in periodic stretching leaps. Nami kept pace surprisingly well, her years navigating treacherous terrain evident in her sure-footed advance alongside Naruto. The outpost Amaterasu had mentioned proved to be a modest stone structure nestled within a grove of ancient trees. Its exterior weathered but its protective seals still vibrant with power. As they crossed its threshold, the priestess activated a complex sequence of symbols that flared briefly before settling into a subtle barrier visible only as a faint distortion in the air around the building. Perception filters and chakra-dampening seals, Mito observed admiringly. Similar to Uzushiogeku's defense Vei architecture but with refinements I've never encountered. The Star Shrine incorporates techniques from all 7 temple traditions, Amaterasu explained, lighting ceremonial lamps that cast warm amber light throughout the stone chamber. As the nexus point, we maintain knowledge that would otherwise be lost when individual guardian clans diminish. Once certain their pursuers had passed by, Nada confirming the Shadow Walkers had continued southeast, Following a false trail created by one of Robin's cleverly placed duplicate limbs, they gathered around a central table where Amaterasu unrolled led an ancient map unlike any cartographic representation Naruto had seen before. Rather than geographical features, it depicted energy flows between 7 distinct points arranged in a precise geometric pattern. At the center, a starburst formation marked what could only be the Star Temple, while familiar spiral and crescent symbols indicated the already activated Sun and Moon temples. The dimensional lattice in its complete form. The priestess explained. When in balance, each temple channels its guardian's essence to maintain the boundaries between specific dimensional planes. The Sun Te MPLE governs realms of manifestation and physical law. The Moon Temple manages realms of reflection and possibility. Her finger traced connections between the various points. The Mountain Temple stabilizes realms of form and permanence. The Sea Temple regulates realms of transition and depth. The Storm Temple balances realms of transformation and catalyst. The Forest Temple harmonizes realms of connection and growth. And the Star Temple, Naruto prompted when she paused. The Nexus, Amaterasu replied simply. The point through which all dimensions were originally divided, and through which they might be reunited, or further separated if necessary. It doesn't govern specific realms but rather the relationships between them. Robin leaned forward, her analytical mind quickly grasping implications. So when the Sun and Moon temples activated out of sequence, the dimensional boundaries they maintain began to weaken, Amaterasu confirmed. Creating passages between worlds that should remain distinct. Your presence here, she nodded to the pirates, is a direct consequence of that disruption. And Kenji wants to exploit this disruption, Naruto concluded. To access something he see, all the Nexus realm, and reshape both our worlds. For the first time, Amaterasu's composed demeanor faltered slightly. If he seeks the Nexus realm, then the situation is graver than we feared. At plane exists at the intersection of all dimensional boundaries, a place of pure potential where reality itself can be rewritten. It was sealed after the Great Division precisely because its power proved too dangerous for any mortal to wield. But he needs all 7 guardians, essences to access it, Mito recalled from their previous discoveries. He only has fragments from the Moon Temple, and failed to extract Nika's essence from Naruto. There are alternatives, Amaterasu admitted reluctantly. Ancient forbidden techniques that could force open the dimensional boundaries without proper guardian vessels. They require tremendous sacrifice, but for one with Uchiha visual prowess and knowledge of primordial sealing methods. Then we need to secure the Star Temple before he attempts such techniques, Naruto decided. How soon can you take us there? The priestess studied him thoughtfully. The temple responds only to its chosen vessel, one who stands between worlds, as the prophecy states. Before proceeding, we must determine if such an individual exists among us. Her gaze moved deliberately to each member of their group before returning to Naruto. And you, Uzumaki-san, muse. Learn greater control over Nika's essence if you hope to counterbalance whatever power Kenji has acquired from the Moon Temple. I've been working on it, Naruto acknowledged, but the integration is still unpredictable. Then perhaps formal training is required, Amaterasu suggested. While we rest here before continuing to the main shrine, I could guide you through techniques my order has preserved for communicating with guardian essences. The offer was accepted readily, and as the others took the opportunity to recover from their journey, Naruto followed Amaterasu to a small meditation chamber adjacent to the main room. There, surrounded by ancient symbols reminiscent of those from both temples they'd encountered, the priestess instructed him to sit in a specific posture on a Shiin positioned at the center of an intricate seal. The guardian essences exist simultaneously within and beyond their vessels, she explained, lighting ceremonial incense that filled the chamber with a subtle, clarifying aroma. Nika, the Sun Guardian, embodies freedom, joy, and liberation, but also creation, illumination, and vitality. To fully harmonize with such an essence requires understanding all its aspects. Not merely those that manifest most prominently. Naruto closed his eyes, following her instructions to regulate his breathing and visualize his internal energy pathways. Unlike standard meditation techniques he'd learned during sage training, this method involved deliberately engaging with Nika's essence rather than achieving perfect stillness. Invite rather than command, Amaterasu's voice guided softly. The Sun Guardian cannot be controlled through force of will, only through alignment of purpose. Within his mindscape, Naruto found himself in a modified version of the familiar space he shared with Kurama. The nine tails observed from his usual position, but the traditionally watery floor now rippled with golden light that seemed to have no specific source yet illuminated everything. She knows what she's talking about, Kurama acknowledged grudgingly. This approach feels correct for integrating with Nika's nature. Naruto nodded, then addressed the golden light directly. Nika, Sun Guardian, I'd like to speak with you properly, if that's possible. The light intensified, coalescing into a humanoid figure whose features remained indistinct except for an impossibly wide smile that somehow conveyed joy without menace. When it spoke, the voice resonated with multiple tones simultaneously, youthful yet ancient, powerful yet playful. Vessel of freedom, child of prophecy, you seek understanding. Yes, Naruto confirmed, finding himself smiling in response to the entity's infectious joy. I need to control your power better if we're going to prevent the dimensional convergence. The figure's laughter filled the mindscape, not mocking but genuinely amused. Control is illusion. Boundaries are temporary. Joy is eternal. Naruto glanced at Kurama, who rolled massive eyes in a surprisingly human gesture of exasperation. Try a different approach. Conceptual entities rarely communicate in straightforward terms. Considering this advice, Naruto reformulated his request. Then help me understand how we can work together more harmoniously. Our worlds are in danger because the dimensional temples activated out of sequence. I want to protect both my precious people and those from other dimensions who've been caught in this disruption. The golden figure seemed to appreciate this framing, its light pulsing in what felt like approval. Better. Harmony requires mutual liberation. I free you from limitations. You free me from formlessness. As Naruto contemplated this cryptic statement, the figure extended a hand composed of swirling golden energy. Witness the pattern of worlds. When Naruto accepted the offered hand, his consciousness expanded dramatically, suddenly perceiving not just his mindscape but innumerable dimensional planes simultaneously. The experience was overwhelming, a kaleidoscopic rush of realities where physical laws, time, space, and even concepts like identity operated according to wildly different principles. Through this chaos of infinite possibility, he discerned the dimensional lattice that Amaterasu had shown them, a complex geometric structure of incredible beauty that both separated and connected these myriad realities. Where the lattice remained intact, dimensions coexisted in harmonious separation. But in several locations, particularly around the points corresponding to the Sun and Moon temples, the structure showed signs of instability, realities bleeding into one another, creating zones of chaotic hybridization. The Great Division created order from chaos, Nika's voice explained. Somehow comprehensible despite the overwhelming sensory input. 7 guardians maintain separation that allows infinite diversity. But when guardians awaken improperly, boundaries weaken. The vision shifted, focusing on a particular node in the lattice corresponding to the Star Temple. Unlike the other points, this nexus connected to all dimensions simultaneously, serving as the keystone of the entire structure. The inverse one seeks reunion of all possibility, a return to primordial chaos where reality is mutable but nothing endures. This is not freedom but dissolution. Kenji, Naruto realized, he wants to use the Nexus realm to rewrite reality, to create a world where the Uchiha massacre never happened. A noble desire from limited perspective. But dimensional collapse would unmake all existences. Not merely rewrite one. The vision expanded again, showing the consequences of complete dimensional collapse, the beautiful lattice structure shattering entirely. Infinite realities crashing together in a cataclysm that would make the Fourth Great Ninja War seem insignificant by comparison. Worlds, lives, even concepts and natural laws dissolving into primordy. Chaos from which nothing recognizable would emerge. How do we prevent this? Naruto asked, the enormity of the threat now fully apparent. Balance must be restored. New vessels must awaken each guardian in proper sequence. The star must find its bearer. Who stands between worlds. And my role, as your vessel. The golden figure's smile somehow widened further, radiating such pure joy that Naruto couldn't help but respond in kind. Liberation, Naruto Uzumaki. Your role is liberation. Of yourself, of others, of possibility itself. Embrace my essence not as power to be wielded but as truth to be lived. With these words, the golden figure dissolved into pure light that flowed into Naruto like sunshine into water, filling him with warmth that spread throughout his consciousness. Amma observed this integration with cautious optimism, his own chakra adjusting to accommodate the more complete merging. This feels correct, the nine tails acknowledged. Unlike before when the energies conflicted, now they're harmonizing. Naruto opened his eyes, returning to physical awareness in the meditation chamber. Amaterasu knelt before him, her expression showing subtle surprise and what might have been respect. You've achieved communion with the guardian, she observed. Faster than I anticipated. Your natural affinity for Nika's essence must be exceptional. Naruto noticed immediately that his perception had altered. Not just visual acuity but awareness of subtle energy flows throughout the chamber, the building, and beyond. Moreover, he felt a profound sense of joyful possibility. As though limitations he'd always accepted as immutable had suddenly become merely optional. I understand better now, he told her, rising fluidly to his feet. Not just about Nika's power, but about the dimensional structure and what's at stake if Kenji succeeds. When they rejoined the others, Naruto's altered appearance immediately drew attention, his hair now featuring significant more white strands interspersed with the original blonde, his blue eyes occasionally flashing gold when he spoke about particularly meaningful topics, and most noticeably, a subtle golden glow that seemed to radiate from beneath his skin. You look different, Nami observed, studying his transformation with undisguised curiosity. Feel different too, Naruto acknowledged with a grin that made slightly wider than humanly possible. Like I've been wearing weighted training clothes my whole life and suddenly took them off. You've achieved second stage integration, Amaterasu explained to the group. The Guardian's essence now flows harmoniously with your own chakra rather than existing as a separate force within you. This grants greater access to Nika's abilities while maintaining your individual identity. What exactly does that mean in practical terms? Robin inquired, ever the analyst seeking concrete understanding. Rather than answering verbally, Naruto demonstrated, moving across the room in a blur of motion that seemed to bend space itself, leaving momentary afterimages that glowed with golden light before dissipating. When he stopped, he held a cup of tea that had been on a table at the opposite side of the chamber, offering it to Robin with an impossibly wide smile. It means I'm starting to understand what freedom really is, he said, his voice carrying that distinctive dual quality they'd heard before. Not just freedom from external constraints, but from assumed limitations. Luffy bounced up excitedly. That's exactly what Gear 5th feels like. Like the rules don't apply anymore. Precisely, Amaterasu confirmed. The Sun Guardian's domain includes liberation from conventional boundaries, physical, conceptual, even metaphysical. In complete form, Suck H power could rewrite local reality through sheer joyful will. Mito looked troubled by this description. That level of reality manipulation sounds dangerously similar to what Kenji seeks through the Nexus realm. The difference, Amaterasu clarified, is scale and balance. Nika's essence allows modification within the existing dimensional framework, significant but ultimately contained transformations. The Nexus realm would permit complete restructuring of fundamental reality across all dimensions simultaneously. After ensuring they had rested sufficiently, Amaterasu led them from the outpost toward the main star shrine. Now just 4 kilometers distant according to her guidance. As they traveled, Naruto experimented with his enhanced perception, discovering he could detect disturbances in the dimensional fabric itself, subtle ripples where boundaries had weakened, allowing aspects of different realities to bleed through. There are more dimensional breaches forming, he informed the group, focusing on particularly significant distortions ahead. 3 major ruptures within a kilometer of our destination. Hinata activated her Byakugan, confirming his assessment. Multiple chakra signatures near those rupture points, some familiar to our world, others completely foreign. And at the largest breach, she hesitated, focusing more intently. There appears to be a battle in progress. They accelerated toward the disturbance, caution balanced against urgency. Cresting a forested hill, they gained view of a remarkable scene in the valley below, a massive tear in reality approximately 50 meters across. Its edges shimmering with prismatic energy. Through this dimensional window, another world was clearly visible, an ocean landscape dominated by a bizarre vessel that appeared to be part ship, part sunflower, part lion. "The Thousand Sunny," Nami exclaimed, recognition and relief flooding her features. "That's our ship." Fighting near the dimensional breach were several Gers, 3 pirates recognizable to Luffy's crew battling against a combination of black-cloaked shadow walkers and what appeared to be more Blackbeard pirates. The clash of devil fruit abilities Agai, NST shinobi techniques created spectacular but dangerous interactions, each impact sending ripples through the already unstable dimensional tear. "Sanji, Chopper, Usopp," Luffy shouted, immediately launching himself toward the battle with typical impulsivity. "Wait," Amaterasu called, but too late. The rubber man was already stretching his way into the fray, whooping with excitement at finding more of his nakama. Naruto assessed the situation rapidly. "Hinata, Mito, secure the perimeter and watch for additional enemies. Robin, can you use your abilities to retrieve your crewmates through the breach without widening it?" The archaeologist nodded, crossing her arms in her characteristic stance. Cian Fleur. Chain. Multiple arms blossomed in sequence, forming a human chain that extended toward the dimensional opening. "Nami, Brook, support Robin and help stabilize your friends once they're through. I'll handle the shadow walkers." Naruto turned to Amaterasu. "How close are we to the Star Shrine?" "Just beyond that ridge," she indicated a stone formation approximately 500 meters beyond the breach. "The temple entrance lies within the shrine's inner sanctum." "Then let's clear this situation quickly," Naruto decided, golden energy flowing more visibly around him as he prepared to enter the battle. Before Kenji realizes what's happening, with a burst of speed that left golden afterimages, Naruto joined the conflict, immediately targeting the shadow walkers who presented the greatest tactical threat. His enhanced perception allowed him to see the specialized chakra techniques they employed, literal shadow manipulation similar to the Nara clan's abilities but focused on concealment and transportation rather than restraint. "Rasengan. Liberation," he called, modifying Hai's signature technique with Nika's essence. The resulting sphere wasn't just compressed chakra but something more fundamental, a swirling concentration of reality-altering energy that, when it struck the lead shadow walker, didn't damage so much as transform. The shinobi's shadow techniques dissolved as though they'd never existed, leaving him momentarily bewildered and vulnerable. Meanwhile, Luffy had reached his crewmates, his stretching abilities creating confusion among the Blackbeard pirates who hadn't encountered him before. A blonde man in a black suit, presumably Sanji, fought with incredible leg techniques that ignited with actual flame, while a small, reindeer-like creature, Chopper, shifted between multiple forms with fluid ease. The third crewmate, a long-nosed man wielding what appeared to be a slingshot, provided covering fire with projectiles that exploded into various improbable effects from plant growth to sleeping gas. Robin's blossoming arms reached the ship visible through the breach, communicating with someone aboard through gesture. Moments later, a skeletal figure emerged from below decks, another crew member, judging by Nami's reaction. "Frankie," she called, "we need to get the Sunny through before the breach collapses." The blue-haired cyborg, for he appeared to be mechanical from the waist up, gave an exaggerated thumbs up before disappearing back into the vessel. Engines roared to life, and the bizarre ship began maneuvering toward the dimensional opening. As the battle intensified, Naruto found himself fighting alongside Sanji, their complementary styles. Naruto's unpredictable freedom-enhanced techniques and Sanji's precision flame kicks, creating devastating combinations against their opponents. "So you're the one Luffy wouldn't shut up about," the cook remarked between attacks, lighting a cigarette despite the ongoing combat. "The sunshine ninja who's helping our navigator. And you must be the chef who can set his legs on fire," Naruto returned with a grin, deflecting shadow tendrils with a golden enhanced kunai. "Nice technique. Diable Hambi." Sanji identified his flaming leg with a hint of pride. "And I'm more concerned with how you've been treating Nami Swan during her dimensional displacement." Before Naruto could respond to this oddly protective inquiry, a massive gravitational distortion warped the battlefield, a technique he recognized from their previous encounter with Blackbeard's agents. The source emerged from the tree line, a tall, powerfully built man with a distinctive beard divided into 3 points, missing teeth, an aura of malevolent ambition that reminded Naruto uncomfortably of Madara Uchiha. Marshal D. Teach, Nami identified grimly. Blackbeard himself. The pirate admiral surveyed the chaos with calculating eyes that betrayed an intelligence belied by his unkempt appearance. Ziahaha. The Straw Hats and their new friends, all gathered in one place. How convenient. He raised a hand wreathed in darkness that seemed to devour light itself. I sensed something special awakening in this strange world, something with the power to make me king of all realities. And here it is, wrapped in a blonde ninja with whisker marks. The darkness extended from his palm, expanding into a vortex similar to but far more powerful than what his subordinate had generated during their previous encounter. Black hole. Everything within 50 meters began dragging toward the pirate admiral. Rocks, trees, weapons, even light itself bending toward the singularity he'd created. Naruto felt Nika's essence respond instinctively to this unnatural gravity, golden energy flaring to counteract the pulling force. Everyone, fall back toward the shrine, he ordered, understanding that this confrontation required more space and fewer bystanders. Get your ship through the breach and retreat to safer ground. As the others disengaged, Luffy reluctantly, only after Nami literally dragged him by his stretched ear, Naruto fully embraced Nika's essence. Completing the transformation he'd been gradually achieving. His hair turned completely white, his body gaining the fluid, cartoon-like quality they'd witnessed briefly before. Golden light erupted around him, not as chakra cloak but as fundamental alteration of local reality. Interesting power you've got there, Blackbeard observed, darkness continuing to flow. From one hand while seismic energy, a second devil fruit ability, Naruto realized, gathered in the other. Let's see how it stands against the power to destroy worlds. The pirate slammed his quake-charged fist into the ground, sending fissures racing outward with such force that the very air seemed to crack. Simultaneously, his darkness vortex expanded, threatening to engulf everything within its growing radius. Naruto responded not with conventional ninjutsu but with Nika's unique approach to reality, laughing as he literally grabbed the edge of a fissure as though it were fabric and folded it closed. The fundamental freedom from conventional physics that characterized the Sun Guardian's power allowed him to treat Blackbeard's devastating techniques as merely suggestions rather than absolutes. What the hell? The pirate admiral growled, genuine surprise replacing his confident demeanor. No devil fruit should be able to counter both darkness and quakes simultaneously. Not a devil fruit, Naruto corrected, his voice carrying that distinctive dual-tone quality. Something much older. Capitalizing on Blackbeard's momentary confusion, Naruto crossed the distance between them with reality-bending speed. Golden light trailing behind him like solar flares. His attack wasn't a conventional strike but rather a touch that briefly connected their existences, Nika's essence encountering the unusual dual devil fruit energies within the pirate admiral. The resulting reaction sent Blackbeard staggering backward, his darkness temporarily disrupted as though fundamental aspects of his powers had been momentarily rewired. What did you do to me? He snarled, darkness flickering unstably around his form. Showed your powers what freedom feels like, Naruto replied with that impossibly wide smile. They might start questioning whether they want to serve someone who only seeks to dominate. Before Blackbeard could recover, a voice called from the ridge beyond, Amaterasu, standing at WH. It appeared to be an ancient torii gate half overgrown with vines. Uzumaki-san, the shrine entrance is secured, but we must hurry. These dimensional breaches are destabilizing the entire area. Naruto glanced between the priestess and his opponent, calculating priorities. Blackbeard represented a significant threat, but Kenji and the Star Temple remained their primary concern. With a decision made, he created a dozen shadow clones, each manifesting partial Nika transformations with varying expressions of the Sun Guardian's abilities. Play with these for a while, he suggested to the pirate admiral. Before disappearing in a flash of golden light that bent space between his current position and Amaterasu's location. The priestess led him quickly through the torii gate into what appeared outside to be a modest shrine complex but expanded impossibly once entered, interior spaces defying the external dimensions in ways that suggested dimensional manipulation rather than mere genjutsu. The shrine exists partially between dimensional planes, Amaterasu explained as they hurried through corridors decorated with star-pattern motifs and ancient script. It's how we've remained hidden. From those who might misuse the temple's power. They emerged into a central courtyard where the rest of their group had already gathered, including the newly arrived Straw Hat crew members. The Thusa, Nd Sunny itself sat impossibly within the courtyard despite being far too large for the space, another manifestation of the shrine's dimensional peculiarities. The breach collapsed naturally once your vessel passed through, Amaterasu informed the pirates, but more continued to form throughout the region as the dimensional barriers weaken. Where's the temple entrance? Naruto asked, maintaining partial transformation to monitor the dimensional disturbances through Nika's perception. The priestess indicated a circular pattern inlaid in stone at the courtyard's center, its design reminiscent of a starburst. Beneath us, but it will only open to its chosen vessel, one who stands between worlds. And how do we determine who that is? Mito inquired. The temple itself will recognize its guardian's affinity, Amaterasu replied. Each individual must step onto the seal and be tested. One by one, they approached the stone pattern, each experiencing nothing more than a faint warmth beneath their feet, until Robin stepped forward. The moment the archaeologist's sandals touched the ancient stonework, the pattern illuminated with silver blue light that spiraled upward around her form. Nico Robin, Amaterasu breathed, genuine surprise breaking through her composed demeanor. Of course, the one who reads the language of lost civilizations. The one whose very existence bridges historical epics. The archaeologist remained perfectly still as the light examined her, neither fighting nor embracing its inspection. When she finally spoke, her voice carried uncharacteristic uncertainty. What does this mean? It means you are the vessel the Star Temple has chosen, Amaterasu explained. The one who stands between worlds, not just physically, but intellectually, historically, conceptually. Your lifetime pursuit of knowledge that exists between known and unknown makes you uniquely qualified to bear the Star Guardian's essence. Before Robin could respond, a deep rumbling shook the sea. Courtyard as the stone pattern began to reconfigure itself, opening downward into a spiraling staircase illuminated by the same silver blue light that had recognized her. The way opens, Amaterasu intoned formally. The star awaits its chosen. Naruto stepped forward to stand beside Robin, sensing her momentary hesitation despite her outwardly calm demeanor. You don't have to do this alone, he assured her. Whatever awaits down there, we face it together. The archaeologist's composure returned, a small smile acknowledging his support. I've spent my life pursuing historical truths others wished to keep buried. I won't stop now when the stakes include all our worlds. Luffy bounced forward to Robin's other side, his simple loyalty requiring no complex explanation. Robin's my nakama. Where she goes, I go too. The vessel must descend first, Amaterasu cautioned. Others may follow, but the initial connection between Guardian and Chosen One must occur without interference. With a nod of understanding, Robin began descending the spiraling staircase alone, her dignified poise unwavering despite the momentous implications. Once she had progressed sufficiently, Naruto and Luffy followed, with the others forming a procession behind them, pirates and shinobi united by circumstance and growing bonds of mutual respect. The staircase descended far deeper than seemed possible given the shrine's location, eventually opening into a vast underground chamber whose architecture defied conventional geometry. Surfaces curved in ways that suggested additional spatial dimensions, and the entire T was illuminated not by torches or chakra but by what appeared to be miniature stars suspended in midair. At the chamber's center stood a platform resembling an astronomical observatory, concenter. I see rings of some opalescent material surrounding a central dais where Robin now stood, examining inscriptions that spiraled across the floor in primordial script. The star nexus, Amaterasu identified quietly. The central node of the dimensional lattice, through which all worlds were originally divided. As they watched, the miniature stars floating throughout the chamber began to move, rearranging themselves into complex constellations that rotated slowly around the central platform. Robin continued deciphering the inscriptions, her extraordinary intellect allowing her to make connections even without Naruto's direct translation. It's a historical record, she announced, academic excitement momentarily overriding the gravity of their situation. Not just of this world or mine, but of reality before the Great Division. It speaks of a primordial chaos where all possibilities existed simultaneously, a state that proved unsustainable as contradictory potentials began annihilating one another. The constellations shifted again, now forming a representation of 7 distinct figures surrounding a central light. The 7 guardians emerged from this chaos, Robin continued, reading as the story unfolded in script and stellar arrangement simultaneously. Fundamental aspects of reality that crystallized into distinct conceptual entities: sun, moon, mountain, sea, storm, forest, and star. Together, they performed the Great Division, Amaterasu added, her knowledge complementing Robin's translation. Separating infinite possibility into discrete dimensional planes where consist natural laws could evolve without mutual destruction. The stellar display shifted once more, now showing the geometric arrangement of temples they'd seen on various maps and scrolls. Each Guardia created a temple to anchor their respective dimensional domains, Robin explained, and selected worthy bloodlines to serve as caretakers, humans who embodied their fundamental aspects. The Uzumaki for the Sun Temple, Mito murmured. The Uchiha for the Moon. And others now lost to history, Amaterasu confirmed. The system functioned perfectly for millennia, until the star pattern suddenly collapsed, constellations dissolving into chaotic swirls that pulsed with ominous energy. Before Robin could translate the corresponding text, a slow handclap echoed through the chamber. Until AMB, Ishus humans decided they preferred chaos to order, a familiar voice completed. Until they recognized the potential for godhood hidden within dimensional manipulation. Kenji Uchiha emerged from shadows that shouldn't have existed in the star-lit chamber, accompanied by 6 black-cloaked figures whose features remained obscured. His Sharingan gleamed with enhanced patterns that suggested he'd evolved his visual prowess beyond standard forms, perhaps through whatever essence he'd claimed from the Moon Temple. I must thank you for leading me directly to the Star Temple, he continued conversationally. And for identifying its chosen vessel. Saves me considerable effort in trial and error. Naruto moved immediately to protective position, golden energy flaring visibly around his transformed state. How did you breach the shrine's defenses? Moon Temple essence grants certain perspectives on reality, Kenji replied cryptically, including the ability to see through illusions meant to conceal dimensional interfaces. His gaze shifted to Robin, the historian. Of course the star would choose one who catalogs possibility itself. Whatever you're planning won't work, Naruto stated firmly. We know about the Nexus realm now, and what would happen if dimensional boundaries fully collapsed. Do you? Kenji's expression showed genuine curiosity. Or have you simply accepted propaganda perpetuated by those who divided reality for their own purposes? He gestured to the stellar display, which continued its chaotic swirling. The Great Division wasn't salvation, it was imprisonment. Infinite possibility reduced to limited, predictable outcomes. It prevented mutual annihilation, Amaterasu countered. Contradictory potentials cannot coexist without destroying each other. According to whom? Kenji challenged. The very entities who imposed arbitrary order on limitless chaos. Who decided which possibilities deserved to exist and which should be discarded? His Sharingan intensified, Tomo spinning into a pattern Naruto didn't recognize. I've seen the truth through the Moon Temple's essence, glimpsed realities where the Uchiha massacre never occurred, where my family still lives. Where Konoha was founded on principles of true equality rather than Senju dominance masked as cooperation. And you think you can simply cherry-pick the realities you prefer? Nami interjected skeptically. Reshape everything to suit your ideal vision. With the 7 guardians, essences and access to the Nexus realm, yes. Kenji's certainty was chilling. Reality should be mutable, responsive to conscious intent rather than fixed in arbitrary patterns. As this philosophical debate continued, Naruto noticed Robin surreptitiously continuing her translation of the spiraling text. Her eyes widening at whatever she discovered. Simultaneously, he sensed a building pressure within the chamber, energy gathering as the Star Temple responded to its chosen vessel's presence. Distract him, Kurama suggested within their shared mindscape. Whatever's happening with the Star Temple and the historian, he hasn't noticed yet. Following this advice, Naruto took a deliberate step forward, golden energy flaring more prominently. So that's what the inverse 1 from the prophecy means, he declared, drawing Kenji's attention. You've inverted the Guardian's purpose, using air power to collapse boundaries rather than maintain them. Simplistic, but essentially correct, Kenji acknowledged, seemingly pleased to have his perspective recognized. The Guardians were never meant to be eternal jailers of possibility. They were aspects of primordial chaos itself before they betrayed their nature by imposing rigid order. While Kenji expounded on his philosophical position, the stellar constellations began subtly realigning around Robin, responding to silent commands she appeared to be giving through her interaction with the inscriptions. Naruto maintained his diversion, drawing on diplomatic skills honed during post-war negotiations. You're right that imposed limitations can be unjust, he conceded, surprising Kenji with apparent sympathy. After all, I've spent my life fighting against arbitrary boundaries, proving that orphans could become heroes, that Jinchuriki could be accepted, that cycles of hatred could be broken. Then you understand, Kenji replied, momentary hope flickering in his expression. The current reality is merely one possibility among infinite options. Why shouldn't we reshape it into something better? Because better is subjective, Naruto countered. Your perfect world might be someone else's nightmare. And more importantly, because total dimensional collapse wouldn't create selective improvement, it would destroy everything that currently exists in favor of unstable chaos. While this exchange continued, Robin had completed whatever process she'd been subtly conducting. The stellar constellations now formed a perfect representation of the dimensional lattice, with the star temple at its center glowing with intensifying silver-blue light. It's ready, she announced quietly to those nearest her. The temple has accepted me as its vessel. Kenji's attention snapped to the archaeologist, his Sharingan narrowing as he recognized the pattern forming above her. Stop her, he commanded his shadow-cloaked companions. He's activating the temple's primary function. The black-cloaked figures moved with inhuman speed, but encountered an unexpected obstacle. Luffy, stretching his limbs to form a protective barrier Robin while Naruto's golden form intercepted Kenji directly. Too late, Robin declared with quiet confidence, placing her palms on specific symbols inlaid in the platform. Star Revelation. Truth Unbounded. The chamber exploded with silver-blue light as the Star Temple fully activated, its essence flowing into Robin in a spectacle reminiscent of but distinct from Naruto's integration with Nika. Where the Sun Guardian's power manifested as golden energy and liberation, the Star Guardian expressed itself through illumination and connection, thousands of glowing threads extending from Robin's transformed form to connect with everyone present, creating a shared consciousness that transcended individual perspective. For a breathtaking moment, they all perceived reality as the Star Guardian did, not as separate worlds but as a beautiful, intricate lattice of interconnected possibilities, each dimension unique yet fundamentally related to all others. Through this expanded awareness, the truth of what dimensional collapse would mean became viscerally apparent. Not liberation but dissolution, the unique beauty of distinct realities lost in formless chaos. Even Kenji, caught in this revelation, momentarily faltered as his certainty confronted direct experience of what his plan would actually create. The expression that crossed his face wasn't the triumph he'd anticipated but horror at the unintended consequences his actions would unleash. The moment of shared consciousness passed, but Robin remained transformed, her normally black hair now containing streaks of cosmic blue, her eyes reflecting miniature galaxies. Her entire being radiating the calm wisdom of one who perceives connections invisible to others. The Star Guardian has awakened properly, Amaterasu announced, genuine hope entering her voice for the first time. The dimensional lattice can begin rebalancing. Kenji staggered backward, his Sharingan fluctuating as he processed what he'd witnessed. For a moment, it seemed the revelation might have changed his perspective, but then his expression hardened once more, resolve crystallizing into something colder and more desperate. One awakened guardian means nothing, he declared. I still possess essence from the Moon Temple, and there are other ways to access the Nexus Realm. He formed a complex sequence of hand seals Naruto didn't recognize. Dimensional style. Forced convergence. The chamber shuddered violently as reality itself seemed to protest the technique, cracks appearing in the air like shattered glass revealing churning chaos beyond. Kenji's shadow-cloaked companions moved to surround him, each performing complementary seals that amplified his forbidden jutsu. He's trying to tear open a direct path to the Nexus realm. Amaterasu cried in alarm. Without proper guardian mediation, it will destabilize the entire dimensional lattice. Naruto and Robin moved simultaneously, their respective guardian essences responding to the immediate threat. Golden liberation energy met cosmic connective power, creating a reinforcing barrier around the chamber that resisted Kenji's technique. "We need to get everyone out of here," Naruto called to Luffy and the others. The temple structure itself can withstand dimensional distortion, but anything caught between realities when boundaries collapse could be permanently lost. "What about you and Robin?" Nami asked, concern evident despite the chaos erupting around them. "We'll contain this and follow," Robin assured her, cosmic energy flowing from her transformed state to strengthen the barrier. "Our guardian essences provide some protection against dimensional dissolution." As Amaterasu led the others toward the spiraling staircase, now fluctuating between solid and translucent as reality itself became unstable, Kenji completed his technique. Space ruptured around him and his companions, creating a swirling vortex of primordial energy unlike anything Naruto had encountered before, not a portal to another dimension but a tear in the fabric of reality itself. "The Nexus breach is forming," Kenji called, triumph and madness mingling in his voice. "Soon all possibilities will be mine to command." Naruto exchanged glances with Robin, both understanding what needed to be done. Without verbal coordination, they launched simultaneous attacks, Naruto's Liberation Rasengan meeting Robin's Cosmic Revelation in perfect harmony. The combined guardian energies struck Kenji's dimensional tear, not attempting to close it directly but rather to stabilize its chaotic edges. "What are you doing?" Kenji demanded, recognizing that his breach remained open but had somehow been altered. "Creating a controlled pathway," Robin explained, her transformed voice carrying the calm certainty of cosmic awareness. "Allowing connection without collapse, giving you what you want without destroying everything else," Naruto added, golden energy continuing to flow from his palms to maintain the stabilization. The vortex stabilized into something more structured, a spiral pathway leading toward a central point of blinding light that could only be the Nexus realm. But unlike Kenji's chaotic tear, this controlled opening maintained dimensional integrity around its edges, preventing cascading collapse. "You've helped me." Kenji's confusion was evident, Sharingan shifting rapidly as he attempted to comprehend their actions. "We've prevented catastrophe," Robin corrected. "What you do with the pathway is your choice, but it won't unmake all reality in the process." Kenji studied the stabilized vortex, calculation replacing confusion. After a moment's consideration, he gestured to his companions. "Proceed as planned. I'll join you momentarily." As the shadow-cloaked figures entered the spiral pathway, disappearing toward the central light, Kenji turned back to Naruto and Robin. "Why?" he asked simply. "Because destruction isn't the only path to change," Naruto answered. "I understand wanting to rewrite a painful reality, to create a world where those you love didn't suffer. But sacrificing countless innocent lives across multiple dimensions isn't the answer. The Star Guardian reveals connections between all possibilities," Robin added, "including paths to healing that don't require annihilation." For a moment, genuine conflict showed in Kenji's expression, the single-minded determination that had driven him wavering in the face of an alternative he hadn't considered. Then his gaze hardened once more. "Noble sentiments," he acknowledged, "but insufficient. The Uchiha deserve justice that this reality has denied them." He turned toward the vortex. "We'll meet again, perhaps in a world where we might have been allies rather than opponents." Before entering the pathway, he performed one final hand seal, causing the chamber to shudder violently. "Insurance against interference," he explained dispassionately. "This temple complex will collapse in approximately 5 minutes, Zhu. Enough time for you to escape if you abandon your stabilization efforts. Or remain and be buried while maintaining dimensional integrity. Your choice." With those parting words, he stepped into the vortex and disappeared toward the Nexus realm. The chamber immediately began disintegrating around them, ancient stone cracking as the pocket dimension that housed the Star Temple started collapsing. It held Kenji's presence to maintain his destructive technique. Naruto and Robin remained in position, guardian energies flowing continuously to stabilize the dimensional pathway and prevent catastrophic collapse. "We can't just let him access the Nexus realm unopposed," Naruto said, golden light pulsing with increased effort as the chamber deteriorated further. Agreed, Robin replied, cosmic energy flowing from her transformed state to counter mounting instability. But abandoning our position would trigger exactly the dimensional collapse we've been trying to prevent. As they maintained their desperate effort, a voice called from the spiraling staircase, Nami, who had apparently returned despite the evacuation order. What's happening? Why aren't you following us out? We can't release the stabilization field. Robin explained calmly despite the dire circumstances. And Kenji has entered the Nexus realm with his allies. Nami assessed the situation quickly, Navigator's mind calculating possibilities. So someone needs to follow him while you two maintain the field from this side. Precisely, Robin confirmed, but anyone entering without Guardian Essence protection would likely be destroyed by raw dimensional energy. A determined expression settled on Nami's features. Then it's decided. Naruto, give me some of Nika's essence, just enough for protection. I'll follow Kenji and stop whatever he's planning. That's too dangerous, Naruto protested, though he couldn't deny the strategic logic. The transfer process itself could be fatal without proper preparation. We don't have time for proper anything, Nami countered, approaching the glowing field they maintained. And I'm not letting some interdimensional maniac rewrite reality while my friends risk everything to clean up his mess. The fierce conviction in her eyes reminded Naruto powerfully of his own determination when facing seemingly impossible odds. Before he could formulate further objections, she stepped directly into the overlapping field of guardian energies, her expression showing pain but unwavering resolve. Just enough to survive the journey, she insisted through gritted teeth. I've navigated the Grand Line and Calm Belt. I can handle one more impossible voyage. Recognizing her unshakable decision, Naruto carefully directed a stream of Nika's essence toward her, not attempting full integration as he had experienced, but rather a protective coating that would shield her from the worst effects of dimensional transit. Golden light surrounded Nami briefly before appearing to sink beneath her skin, leaving her outwardly unchanged except for a subtle glow in her brown eyes and a single streak of white in her orange hair. She gasped as the energy settled, momentarily disoriented before regaining her composure. It feels like possibilities I never considered suddenly seem obvious, she described, flexing her fingers experimentally. Is this how you experience Nika's power all the time? Something like that, Naruto confirmed with a strained smile, maintaining the stabilization field while recovering from the essence sharing. But without full integration, it's temporary, maybe hours at most. Nami nodded understanding, then turned toward the vortex. That should be enough time. She glanced back at Robin. Keep our worlds from collapsing. I'll handle Kenji. Be careful, Robin cautioned, cosmic awareness showing her glimpses of branching possibilities. The Nexus realm operates by different rules than conventional reality. Intent matters more than physics there. With a final determined nod, Nami stepped into the spiral pathway, quickly disappearing toward the central light. Naruto and Robin remained behind, continuing their crucial stabilization effort as the chamber crumbled around them. Will she be all right? Naruto asked, genuine concern evident despite his focus on maintaining the energy field. Robin's cosmic-infused eyes followed connections invisible to others. Her path branches into multiple possibilities, she answered truthfully. But Nami has always defied probability in remarkable ways. And now she carries a fragment of liberation itself. As the temple continued its structural collapse, they adjusted their position to maintain optimal field integrity, working in perfect synchronization despite never having trained together. The Guardian E.'s senses they hosted seemed to communicate directly, Sun and Star harmonizing their efforts to preserve dimensional stability in the face of mounting chaos. The priestess was right, Kurama observed within Naruto's mindscape. With two guardians properly awakened, the dimensional lattice is beginning to rebalance. I can sense the Sun and Star temples reconnecting through your combined efforts. But it's not enough, Naruto replied aloud, sharing his conversation with Robin. We need the other 5 guardians awakened to fully stabilize the system. And to counter whatever Kenji accomplishes in the Nexus realm, Robin added. Her transformed perception allowing her to monitor ripples in the dimensional fabric that indicated activity within the central point of reality. The chamber shuddered violently as supporting structures failed, ceiling beginning to collapse inward. Rather than attempt to dodge falling debris, both guardian vessels extended their respective energies to create a reinforced bubble of stabilized space around themselves and the vortex, maintaining their critical function despite the physical destruction. How much longer can we hold this? Naruto asked, feeling his strain of prolonged essence manipulation despite his exceptional stamina. Until Nami returns, Robin answered simply, her usually pragmatic nature enhanced rather than diminished by the Star Guardian's cosmic perspective. Or until dimensional stability reaches self-sustaining threshold. As if summoned by their conversation, the spiral pathway suddenly fluctuated, its central light intensifying momentarily before a figure emerged. Not Nami, but Kenji, his expression showing a complex mixture of emotions unlike his previous focused determination. She convinced me, he stated without preamble. Sharingan deactivated to reveal ordinary dark eyes filled with conflicted understanding. Your navigator. She showed me what my plan would actually create, not justice but annihilation. Before they could respond, the pathway fluctuated again, disgorging Nami herself, unharmed but visibly exhausted, the white streak in her hair now accompanied by several others. The temporary essence Naruto had shared with her pulsed erratically, having been depleted by whatever occurred within the Nexus realm. The Shadow Walkers, she managed between labored breaths. They're still there, trying to reshape fundamental reality patterns. We need to. Her warning was interrupted as the vortex pulsed violently, reality rippling outward from its center in concentric waves that threatened to overwhelm even their combined guardian energies. From within the spiral pathway, shadowy figures could be glimpsed manipulating what appeared to be the very fabric of existence, pulling, twisting, reweaving fundamental patterns with reckless abandon. They were never loyal to me, Kenji realized aloud, horror dawning. They used my knowledge to access the Nexus realm for their own purposes. Which are? Robin prompted, cosmic awareness straining to interpret their intentions. Reversion, Kenji answered grimly. Return to primordial chaos, exactly what I was warned against but refused to believe. They serve something older than the Guardians themselves. Another violent pulse from the vortex sent them all staggering, the stabilization field weakening as reality itself protested the fundamental manipulation occurring within the Nexus realm. Naruto and Robin redoubled their efforts, guardian essences flaring to maximum intensity. We need more power, Naruto grunted, golden energy surging from his transformed state. The two of us aren't enough to counter direct Nexus manipulation. In response to his declaration, Kenji stepped forward, hands forming unfamiliar seals. The moon essence I absorbed, he offered. Take it. Use it to strengthen your barrier. You'd surrender your power? Robin asked, genuine surprise breaking through her cosmic composure. To prevent universal annihilation, yes. Kenji completed his sequence, silver energy gathering around his form. I sought justice for my clan, not oblivion for all existence. With a final seal, he released the Moon Guardian's essence he had partially integrated, silver light flowing outward to join the golden and cosmic energies already maintaining dimensional stability. The combined power of three guardian essences, Sun, Star, and Moon, created a reinforced barrier that began actively pushing back against the chaotic manipulation within the Nexus realm. It's working, Nami observed, having recovered enough to analyze the energetic interactions. The dimensional fabric is restabilizing. Another violent pulse erupted from the vortex, this one accompanied by inhuman shrieks of frustration as the shadow entities within found their manipulations countered by guardian essence. The spiral pathway began contracting, its central light dimming as connection to the Nexus realm gradually sealed. They're being forced back into conventional dimensional space, Robin explained. Cosmic awareness tracking their transit. Without direct Nexus access, their ability to manipulate fundamental reality is severely limited. With a final pulse, Chi felt more like a tantrum than an attack. The vortex collapsed entirely, dimensional stability reasserting itself throughout the chamber despite its physical destruction. As guardian energies receded to sustainable levels, Naruto and Robin's transformations partially subsided, maintaining essence integration but no longer manifesting full power. It's over, Nami asked cautiously, the white streak in her hair beginning to fade as Nika's borrowed essence dissipated. This phase, at least, Robin answered, cosmic awareness revealing broader patterns. We've prevented immediate dimensional collapse. But the lattice remains dangerously unstable. Without all 7 guardians properly awakened and aligned, convergence will continue, slower but inevitable. Kenji, now devoid of moon essence and looking somehow diminished, studied the chamber's ruins with tired eyes. What happens to me now? I've committed crimes against both reality and your villages. That's for proper authorities to decide, Naruto replied. Though without hostility. But your assistance here will be considered. People can change. I've seen it happen too many times to doubt it. As the immediate crisis subsided, they beckoned me, aware of voices calling from beyond the chamber, their companions returning to search for them once the dimensional fluctuations stabilized. Hinata's Byakugan quickly located them among the rubble, guiding Luffy and the others to their position. Reunions and explanations followed, with Robin's transformed perception providing clarity about what had occurred within the Nexus realm. The Shadow Entities, apparently servants of some primordial chaos force that predated even the Guardians, had used Kenji's knowledge and resources to attempt restoration of the undivided reality that existed before the Great Division. So we've won a battle but not the war, Luffy summarized with characteristic directness. These shadow guys are still out there, Blackbeard's causing trouble, and we need to find I've more Temple Guardian people before everything falls apart. Succinct but accurate, Mito acknowledged, examining the cosmic-infused changes to Robin's appearance with scholarly fascination. At East, with 3 guardians partially awakened, we have a foundation for restoring proper balance. Amaterasu, who had been examining the temple ruins with professional assessment, rejoined the group what appeared to be a crystalline artifact similar to the one Robin had discovered earlier. This was protected within the temple's innermost sanctum, she explained, presenting it to Robin. Our key, companion to the dimensional fragment you already possessed. The archaeologist accepted the artifact, her cosmic enhanced perception immediately understanding its function. Together, they can create stable pathways between specific dimensions, she explained, allowing controlled travel without weakening the overall lattice structure. So we could return to our world? Nami asked, hope ident in her voice despite her exhaustion. And come back to help if needed, Robin clarified. These aren't one-way passages but established connections that remain viable as long as the keys are properly aligned. As they discussed implications and next steps, Naruto found himself drawn slightly apart from the group, a strange sensation pulling at his consciousness. Following this intuitive guidance, he approached a section of chamber wall that remained partially intact, inscribed with primordial script that glowed faintly with residual guardian energy. Placing his palm against the symbols, he channeled a whisper of Nika's essence, just enough to activate latent connections within the ancient writing. The script rearranged itself into a clear message meant specifically for him. Liberation comes in many forms. Vessel of the Sun, the path forward requires both freedom and connection, joy and wisdom, spontaneity and planning. Seek the remaining guardians among those who embody fundamental aspects yet remain flexible enough to evolve. The mountain awaits in the land of Earth, where stubborn strength must learn adaptability. As the message faded, Naruto became aware of Nami standing beside him. Her navigator's intuition having sensed the significance of his discovery. Another prophecy, she asked quietly. Directions, he clarified, turning to meet her gaze. The single white streak remaining in her orange hair caught the ambient light, a visible reminder of their brief essence sharing. Our next destination is the land of Earth, the mountain temple. Something unspoken between them, acknowledgement of the connection that had formed during their shared trials, deepened by her journey into the Nexus realm carrying a fragment of his guardian essence. Not quite romance, but something with potential to grow in that direction, given time and nurturing. Then we should prepare to travel, she suggested practically, though her eyes conveyed deeper meaning. After all, we have multiple worlds to save, and dimensional convergence waits for no one. Naruto smiled. Not Nika's impossible grin but his own genuine expression. Together, he agreed, the simple word carrying layers of significance that both understood without elaboration. As they rejoined the others to share their discovery, the remaining white strands in Naruto's hair caught the light, no longer foreign elements but integrated aspects of his evolving identity. The journey ahead remained daunting, with adversaries both known and unknown still threatening dimensional stability. But surrounded by allies from two worlds. With guardian essences providing unprecedented perspective, the path forward appeared not as insurmountable obstacle but as opportunity for unprecedented connection. For what were dimensional boundaries, after all, but challenges waiting to be navigated by those with courage enough to chart new courses between worlds. Chapter 2 End.